called to do. But I think I'm here for a much smaller reason, and it's just as a history lover, as somebody who loves reading, and I think education's a beautiful thing. I loved the way you talked about it last month at the end of the meeting. I think everyone up there would say the same thing, and you've been called to serve the community this way. My husband, Tim, had a business trip to Washington, D.C. last week. I got to go there for the first time. I went to the Smithsonian 7 times. Our National Museum of American History, to see the flag that inspired Francis Scott Key, to see the inkwell that Abe Lincoln wrote the Emancipation Proclamation, to see the Woolworth's lunch counter that started our civil rights movement. You just can't study American history and think DEI is over here. Or a side note, like diversity, equity, and inclusion, it is our American history. It's what formed us. It's what created us. It's what we're striving for. And I just want us to be really careful. Anything we do to limit how we study it or talk about it or teach it, I just want us to be vigilant, like subtly or not so subtly, we need to be careful. And just one last thing, I really needed to share this because I saw this at the Smithsonian, this basket right here. The description says, you can see how nervous I am, Puyallup basket, 1910 to 1920. Right below it, Willotchett Bay, Washington. This is in our National Museum of History across the country. And in the DEI discussion, some kind of dismissive comments, dismissive at best, were made about things like this. And I want to say we study DEI because when we look at this, we need to know what we're seeing. This is history. We talk about prehistory and history. We talk about hunters and gatherers. This is how we learn about agrarian economies and industrialization. This has fisheries, botany, earth science. There's math here, and there's mechanical engineering. And I'll just say Congress knew when they set up the Smithsonian for I'll remember it, the increase and diffusion of knowledge among men. Education is a beautiful thing, and we're just all charged with protecting that. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Thelma Brown to discuss a resolution.
Oops, no. Please, no. I'm not good at that. Can you hear me? Oh, thank you. Stay. Thank you so much. Good evening, board members and community. This is, I'm Thelma Brown. I'm a retired high school principal, Rotarian, and member of the community. I'm here to read a public letter that was sent to the Peninsula School Board. We write as concerned citizens and parents of the Peninsula School District in regards to the July 22nd, 2021 school board meeting. And one of the resolutions was approved as it. 6.2 resolution number 21 through 28 regarding state-mandated training for staff and school board, which addressed the diversity, equity, and inclusion training called for in Senate Bill 5044. Many of us attended the meeting in person. Several of us made public comments. And all of us are concerned that the passage of this resolution indicates that the board is catering to partisan political pressure from some conservative groups, rather than standing up for the best educational practices our students and teachers deserve. This vaguely worded resolution places our teachers and school staff in a position where any DEI resource they bring into the classroom could be attacked as a part of critical race theory, an academic concept being bogusly targeted by a national campaign of conservative pragmatists to whip up fear that teaching students that they personally are oppressors. We are very disappointed that your resolution included language directly echoing anti-CRT talking points. This gives oxygen to the group of anti-CRT activists who attack our teachers and our schools for addressing justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. The anti-CRT groups in our community are very vocal, but do not represent the majority of our community. Meanwhile, your resolution failed to provide any clear definition or endorse any resources for use by Peninsula School District teachers. Our schools should be practicing culturally responsive teaching, but your resolution leaves them vulnerable to those looking to attack anything they mistakenly think might be aligned with critical race theory. Now I would let Tim Bates come up and continue. Tim?
When called. Separate time, please. Yeah, it's there. It's 2 of 3. Thank you, Thelma. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Tim Gates. I'm here with my wife, Amy, and as she mentioned, our 2 daughters graduated from Gig Harbor High School. I also graduated from Gig Harbor High School, and I'm really thankful that you allow us this opportunity to speak. I'm very thankful for the education I got at Peninsula School District, and the foundation it created in me to have a passion for lifelong learning, and to be a critical thinker. And I mentioned last month when I was here that I work for a large food company that's international. The diversity I work within every day really informs why I think this is so critical. The company I work for, we employ over 270,000 employees. We operate in 186 countries around the world, and our employees work in over 376 factories. And it's a tremendously diverse group of people. And I just want to pick up on the letter that Thelma was reading at this part. Let us be clear. Of course, no teacher should teach white students that they are personally responsible for injustices perpetrated by their ancestors. But all students do need to be taught about the centuries-old system of racial oppression and our history that continue to create injustice and inequality, and that all Americans have a responsibility to work for justice today. We are confident that our teachers, with the kind of diversity and equity training that Senate Bill 5044 supports, can teach our nation's history in a responsible and sensitive way. We ask the board to put the needs of our students first and not let political fear-mongering censor our teachers or curriculum. We also were very surprised to watch as the board passed this resolution before allowing any public comment to be made. At the end of the meeting, we were disheartened to hear the board members dismiss the opinions expressed by us that came to that meeting who spoke against the resolution. Statements about the resolution being misunderstood and public comments coming from a place of emotion are condescending. Worse, they're disingenuous. Given that, as the Tacoma News Tribune reported, the school board president met before the meeting with local conservative groups, reassuring them that the board would soon act to address their anti-CRT concerns. And now after that meeting, has gone on to participate on conservative talk shows to celebrate the resolution as a victory for anti-CRT campaign. The board president's actions suggest that those of us who spoke against the resolution did not misunderstand its intent, but saw it for what it was. After me, and the next speaker will be Joy Stanford, and she'll continue our letter to you.
Hi, my name is Joy Stanford. I'm a parent of a 2018 graduate from Peninsula High School, as well as a community member. I'll continue the letter as written. This misguided resolution only ensures the conflict surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion in the Peninsula School District will remain at the forefront of future board agendas until a clear and equitable way forward is found. In future meetings, we'd encourage you to actually listen to public comment before voting on a proposed measure. We are also deeply concerned that the board has apparently not consulted with the district's DEI committee, which I am a member of, which has existed for more than 5 years and whose collaborative insights should be solicited on all DEI issues. As a group of concerned constituents, we are collectively asking you to do better. It is your job to provide essential leadership to the school district and not pass vague resolutions that can be used to challenge any culturally responsive teaching that some deem dangerous. We ask you to keep the educational needs of all students foremost and not cave to political pressure being stoked by a right-wing propaganda machine. When discussing and voting on resolutions, listen to the opinions of those there to speak before you make your decision. And most importantly, lead. Identify the ways that the Peninsula School District can do better from a DEI standpoint. Empower teachers and staff to do the important work that they are more than qualified to do. Provide teachers the professional freedom to address justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion so that they can help all students understand our history accurately and be prepared to enter society and the workforce that requires sensitivity to diversity and inclusion. This letter was signed by many, over, I think it's 600, 700 folks in the community. We'll be sending that letter along with those signatures to the board. Thank you.
Next up, we have Rennie Ng for DEI.
But I was going to pass it to Thelma Brown, if she would like to use my time.
Once again, good evening. Board members and community. I am Thelma Brown, retired principal of a high school. I want to address the phrase that I have heard too many times. White people are being shamed in the teaching of our history. This is not accurate. There's no one here tonight that is held responsible for the inappropriate behavior of their ancestors years ago, let alone 400 years ago. What we are held accountable for are the things that we are doing now to make things better for everyone as we move forward. Gig Harbor is divided politically and racially. I see it and I have experienced it. We must bridge these divides. We must move forward together. We must listen to the hard realities together. We must listen to the difficult truths together. We have a lot of work to do together. I have my own theory, CRTK theory, quote unquote. Compassion, respect, truth, and kindness. I ask the Board of Education and every member of this community to include this CRTK theory into your daily lives and the lives of your children. In closing, let's not forget one rule that everyone in this room grew up with. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Our golden rule. Thank you for allowing me to speak. And thank you for listening.
Next up is Kyle Devniak to discuss masks and recess.
May I remove this while I'm giving my comments?
I told him you can remove it for comments, please, and put it back on.
So, my name is Kyle Drevnock. I am an engineer and parent to 2 students here at Swiftwater, 3rd grader and a kindergartner. And I'm here to talk about masking our kids. We're so worried about getting sick and so that we don't get sick, and putting our masks on our kids is sick. Statistically, kids are not at risk of seriously getting ill from COVID. In my opinion, they should not be wearing masks at all. It's harder to breathe, to wear glasses, and to make friends.
Please,
Hey, you guys, we
hey.
just want a chance to speak. I would
Please.
really appreciate if we were just allowed.
thank you. Be
everyone to
respectful, please.
These kids have been through enough. They've done everything we've asked. There's no reason they should have to wear a mask at recess. It is within your power as a board, under the State Department of Health guidelines, to allow them to remove their masks at recess. If you feel it's not within your power, please tell us why. If it is, what are you waiting for?
Next up is Dan Brown, DEI. Okay. Spencer Wickland, drivers.
Let's see if I can set this up. Okay. Good evening. My name is Spencer Wickland. I'm a bus driver with Peninsula School District. I've lived out here for the past 15, 16 years. My kids have grown up through the district. My youngest started at the Vaughan Co-op and just graduated this last year. And I'll tell you, he had a really hard time graduating from Peninsula. But he's made it through and did it. I've been in the district. I've been working in the district for a while. I started off helping out at KPMS as a volunteer. I then became a coach at KPMS. I coached soccer. I coached track over there. And I've seen a lot of things happen with this district and the way it has gone through. About a little over 4 years ago, I became a driver for the district. I did it so that I could still be home with my kids and work in the district. I didn't need to. I'm in a rare position as one of the drivers. I'm kind of in a privileged position because I don't need the benefits. I don't need the extras that come with the job. But the extra money does help. In the last year of COVID, that extra money did help us a lot, but I lost a lot of money. I lost probably about $8,000 of what I would have been making due to the reduced routes, due to the lost trips that we take. I like taking trips. Before COVID, I had the opportunity to take a trip with my son as the drum major of Peninsula High School Marching Band over to Pasco. And that was great that I got to be able to be there with him, see him perform, see him do everything. But those were all gone with COVID. Those have been minimized down to almost nothing. Which brings me to a couple other points. During the last year, I had several setbacks on my buses. I had several outbreaks of COVID on the bus. I was required to quarantine at one point, and I was lucky because it was before the end of the year when there was still quarantine pay being put out. A lot of our drivers had to use their own sick pay after the first of the year because the district decided not to use the state sick pay or the state COVID pay. Prior to the end of the or prior to the beginning of the shutdown, we had 82 drivers on staff, contracted drivers, plus a bunch of subs. Currently, we have 71 drivers and very few subs. I just want to, I know my time is up, so I'll wrap it up quickly. We are very underpaid in this district. I was paid $22.41 for the last 3 years. You can currently go out to first student and you get paid $25.50 an hour to start without a CDL, and up to $30.90 an hour if you are experienced, plus a $3,000 signing bonus. That is $1.82 more than our highest paid driver. And that's what you can start at over there. So I know we're in mediation right now. We need to get this solved. You guys have vaccinations, you have mask issues to deal with. But just remember, if you want quality people, you got to recruit. You got to be able to pay them. You got to be able to respect them. You got to put it forward. You pay for what you get.
Thank you. Next up, Katie Russell, mask and resolution.
Hello. It's been so inspiring listening to all of you speak tonight. As we approach the first day of school, I know we all have so much on our minds. As COVID numbers continue to rise and the Delta variant being highly more contagious, I'm worried about our youngest students who cannot be vaccinated. As we are at our highest cases per 100,000, I know our community would like to know the threshold in returning to remote learning. What will it look like when a classroom has to go into quarantine? I'm concerned that the push for 5 days a week full-time is the driving force and not the safety of our children. Last year, at the August 13th, 2020 meeting, the board approved a reopening plan. Will there be a comprehensive plan for the fall of 2021? Families would really like to know. I have also been reflecting on the resolution number 21 through 28 that was presented and voted on at the last board meeting. I'm extremely disappointed that this resolution was passed before the public got to speak. After the resolution was voted on, you got to hear from community members, teachers, students, and a doctor, Dr. Molly, who's here today, who studied CRT in her doctoral program, about the importance of teaching all stories in our school district and teaching true history. Your resolution not only shut those voices down, but put fear in our teachers. I have heard from one history teacher who is scared about how parents will respond if they continue to teach a complete and true history of America and world events. This resolution has increased ambiguity for our community as you failed to define the term critical race theory in your resolution. Now, any parent can object to a teacher's lesson and suggest that discussion or a discussion about slavery is CRT and demand that teacher not teach it, because you did not define what CRT is in your resolution. Even when our new superintendent mentioned equality in her newsletter, parents were upset and said that she was talking about CRT. Can you explain to me what you believe CRT is and why you are scared of it? Please rethink your wording and decision on resolution number 21 through 28. I implore you to listen to the teachers, students, and parents. This is an opportunity to recognize a mistake was made and demonstrate to our students how you can fix mistakes. Use this opportunity to open a dialogue with our teachers and come to the table ready to listen and learn. I would also now like to just talk to the three women, I see that Deb is not here tonight, board members. When is enough enough? You three have been defending and standing by two other board members as they make and have made comments that do not align with PSD's mission statement. It's time to let them fall and not be the ones to pick up the pieces. As a school board, it's time to not just have each other's backs, but really look at what is best for our school district students and teachers. Thank you.
Next up is Joe Nelson, CRT.
I'm Joan Nelson. My husband and I have lived here for 30 years. I am a mother who has been devastated by the racial abuse my son experienced in the Peninsula school system. So I feel compelled to be a case in point of how important the policies that you're considering really are in our lives. I knew there was an incident of the N-word being used against my son at Kopachuk Middle School. My son wanted me to get involved, but I was assured that the students' parents were being called in, and there was no reason for me to be concerned that my highly intelligent student, who had excelled in the district-wide gifted student program at Voyager Elementary, was doing fine. Sadly, the problem was not being handled, and my son lost faith in me as a parent. He stopped telling me about the many, many incidences of racial slurs, including the N-word, that he experienced from multiple students multiple times, and the failure of the school to address it. Only last month did I start to learn the full story, as I have begun to face the deep racism in our culture and work to repair my relationship with my son. This summer, in a group discussion at our church, a young man shared that he grew up in South Tacoma and played a number of different sports on teams that were racially integrated, and they played all-white schools all over the region and never had any problems except in Gig Harbor. Gig Harbor is well known for its racial issues. He told us every time, not just some of the time, every single time that we went to Peninsula High, the N-word was shouted at my teammates, including from the bleachers. That this was tolerated is outrageous. I learned from another white mother that only after her biracial daughter reached her 30s did she divulge the racial exclusion and deep unhappiness she experienced throughout her K through 12 years in Gig Harbor. So I will skip down because I'm running out of time and not tell you the many other stories I have heard from parents of these kinds of abuses and the disrespect shown even to white children who don't seem to quite fit in because they're too interested in school. Fortunately, a teacher's recommendation, I pulled my son out of Gig Harbor for high school, and he graduated full international baccalaureate from Foss High School in Tacoma. So we don't have to talk about slavery or Jim Crow or discrimination of various employment, housing, healthcare, and more, and their impact on individuals, families, and our society. We can just talk about racial abuse in Gig Harbor, in our schools, and their ongoing impacts on all of us. But if the goal is to make sure that Gig Harbor continues to be identified as racist, the policy that you adopted is a really good way to do it. And if we want Gig Harbor to stand out as someplace where teachers are intimidated not to present this country's complex history, and not to allow or encourage open discussion of culture and history, this is a really good way to do it. If we want our children and grandchildren to grow up unprepared for a diversifying society, unprepared for diverse workplaces, unprepared for leadership, this is a really good way to do it. Thank you.
Next up is Dina Cummings, COVID sick pay.
Hi, my name's Dina Cummings. I was not planning on speaking tonight, so I don't have any of my notes ready. But so I've been a parent with the district for about 12 years. My last child graduated in 19. I'm like, okay, what do I do now? So I started to work for the district. I love my job. I work at an elementary school, and I absolutely love the little kids. Back in January, someone got COVID at our school, and so I started to get tested because we did not know who it was. 6 days later, I came down with COVID. I had not taken a day off of school from September until May, so I don't know all the rules and guidelines to COVID. This whole time I thought I was covered with my sick pay. Until May, I took a day off in May. And I got docked for it, and I did not understand why. So I started to talk with HR, and I was told I had used all my COVID sick pay during the time that I was sick. And I thought, I had thought I'd been covered because I got sick from a coworker at school. I've been going round and round and round and round with HR, emails, phone calls, back and forth, to where I've already lost all my sick pay, so I don't feel like I have a choice but to fight it. So I'm gonna fight it. And I'm gonna keep fighting it because all I did was show up for work. And I shouldn't lose all my sick pay because I came to work. So I'm gonna keep fighting it.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Molly Monahan. I've had kids in the district. I've been working with the district in terms of DEI work for quite a long time. Gosh, I want to say my oldest was 5 when I started on the DEI committee here, so that was many years ago. I know you all know I spoke last time at the district board meeting about the resolution. I echo everyone who has come before me in saying that it's very disappointing that you all voted before hearing us out. There are a few things that I want to note. I think the first and most important is the idea of humble leadership. So maybe you didn't know all of the things that we shared afterwards. Maybe you passed this resolution in good faith, but then learned some things after so many members of the community had an opportunity to talk. I hope that's the case. I hope that that's the case, that we can give you the benefit of the doubt there. But then true humble leadership comes with saying, I didn't know. And now it's time to do better. I didn't know, and now it's time to do better. It doesn't mean going out and celebrating what happened as a victory. It wasn't a victory. It was a real effort against the equity and inclusion work that has been attempted for years and years in this district. It really is going to make that work much harder moving forward. I heard some of you say at the end, because I went home and listened to the rest of the meeting, I heard some of you say that maybe there had been some misunderstandings, or I heard one of you say too, that's not, those sentiments don't represent me as a person representing the district. Well, then let's do better, right? Let's do better. Let's go back and revisit that resolution and change it so that it is reflective of what we want to be demonstrating here as a district. I do want to also echo from another perspective, as someone who does equity and inclusion trainings across the country, who works with parents and educators across the country on DEI work, but also who is part of a collective right here in Washington. The sentiments that have already been said about the reputation of the Peninsula School District are spot on. When I shared with folks across the state this resolution that you all passed, not a one batted an eye. All of them said, well, that's Peninsula. I don't think that's how we want to be. So let's do better. Thank you.
So do we have any other comments from the community? Can you identify yourself? Go to podium and identify. That's okay. Yeah, just, you can just sit up there.
Hi, my name's Neil Floyd. I did not come here planning to speak, obviously. I kind of came to listen. I've been to 2 school board meetings, this one and the last one, and what I've seen is that it's kind of been taken over by those advocates for the diversity, equity, inclusion. They've been the majority of the speakers, although we had a great presentation from the lawyer last time about the masks, which is a separate topic for me. What I learned from that is that it seems to be largely outside of your control what you can do with respect to masks. The only thing that I would encourage you is to go back and read the governor's most recent edict, and it does indicate that performances such as band and live performances, music performances are not required to wear a mask. Putting masks on the bell of an instrument is just insane to begin with, so if you could make sure that you consider that. With respect to the DEI, I know I don't have much time. A couple of points. I don't understand what the big problem is, because I heard the resolution when you read it, and it seemed to indicate that everyone is free to teach what they've been teaching up until now. I mean, there's no prohibition, in spite of how many times it's said, against teaching about slavery, about Jim Crow, about history with respect to race in our country. Obviously, that's what is included in a history class. But it seems to be indicated that that's not allowed now based on your resolution. That's not what I heard. Secondly, I'm a realist. I understand that anyone that teaches history is going to present their perspective, their slant, if so be it. That just happens. You can't completely wipe that out, and I'm willing to accept that. Where I draw the line, though, is that DEI and critical race theory seeks to take that into the now and say, because of all of this, we suffer from systemic racism. That's where I have a problem. And here's my problems. First of all, that's subject to the whims of the person that's teaching it. They can say, hey, the criminal justice system is racist in this country. What does that do to a child? When they go out and meet a cop on the street and they look at him and say, you must be racist. You're part of the system. What does it do about a prosecutor? What if you're a child of a prosecutor and you have a school teacher tell you, based on our history, we are currently a racist nation? That's objectionable to me. We may have race problems, but we are not a racist nation. And the people that seek to push that are arguing for DEI, that's all they seem to be concerned about. Let me tell your children what the problem with our society is today. Secondly, inherent in the teaching is that there is this class system in the United States. Well, if white people are privileged, then what you just told is the person of color sitting right next to them that they're inferior. It's inherent in the system. Yes, maybe a senior can make that distinction, but younger children, what you're telling them from the very beginning is, you're not worthy because these people made you that way. How does that not turn us against each other? How does that not make us less cohesive as a nation? It seems to me it's doing the exact opposite of what they want to do. One final point. I just watched all day today. as 13 of my fellow soldiers died in Afghanistan. And all I think about is they watch our news. They know that the main thing that we're focused on in this country is tearing each other apart and trying to teach division. And they're capitalizing on it. And I ask you to take that into consideration. This is just one voice. We don't have the lobby to come out and stack the deck on meetings, although I'm going to start to make sure that happens. But I speak for a lot of people, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Is there any member still needs to speak? Okay. Good.
Just go ahead and introduce yourself.
It's okay.
My name is Christy Matthews, and I've been a bus driver in our district for 18 years. Last year, during COVID, do you realize I could have taken the year off, claimed FMLA, stayed at home because I myself was high risk, had a child who's high risk, but I showed up every day. I am short $10,000 in wages because for 5 months I worked 2 hours a day. 2. That was enough to make me ineligible for unemployment. To try to make up for some of the wages we lost, we asked you as a district to allow our drivers to collect unemployment this summer. We were denied. We're short last year. We're still currently short. We worked a huge reduction in hours. And now we're not worth enough because we showed up. We have drivers who are in the same situation as a lot of other people who caught COVID at work, lost sick leave, didn't get paid, then took it home to their families, who then lost pay, lost their sick leave, and then passed it on. But yet, every day, we were here for our kids. Yep, every day. I did not miss one day of work last year. But I'm not worth enough to be allowed to collect unemployment this summer and was denied last year because I chose to come here and show up for you. So the fact that I have been here for 18 years and you guys don't want to pay me what I can drive to South Kitsap and make $3 more an hour after 18 years, or drive to Tacoma today and make $30.90 an hour with a $3,000 sign-on bonus. Do you know, as a board, that we are short 5 bus drivers going into the first week of school? And that's if every driver who bid a route is able to work on the first day of school. And I can tell you, you have a handful of routes that will not have drivers on day 1. But we will figure it out. We will pick it up, and we will make it happen like we do every year. Having said that, I need you to understand, we train probably 8 to 10 people every year. Out of those people, they walk in the door with a CDL, get paid to do it, then they go away. They go to South Kitsap, Central Kitsap, North Mason, First Student. If you want to retain and get quality drivers in who care about this community, you need to help reflect that in our paychecks.
Is there anybody else who'd like? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm Barbara Thomas. I am a third generation graduated at Peninsula School District, and I'm a Paraeducator Level 3, which means I work with our children that are highly impacted. My friends and I showed up to work in September, and we got nothing. We showed up in March, we got nothing. We went in January. Some substitutes were hired on got double pay apparently. Paraeducators, for you guys, have gotten COVID in the buildings and lost all their sick leave and had to pay out of their pocket for that. That's a large reduction in what they have lost, what we have lost. And we just want you guys to respect us, and we want you guys to make us feel like you think we're part of your group, because without us, there's nothing. We're a team. And Peninsula School District should be a team. The people I work with, if I go into even another building, I'm welcomed in because I'm part of the team and we get things done for you. We take care of your children who are throwing up. We take care of your children who spit on us. Even after COVID, we're getting spit on. We're getting beat up. But we come to work for you guys because it's about the kids. It's about my grandson. It's about my daughter, who is the 4th generation graduate in your school district. All of us have stories like this. Most of us have been here our whole lives. You guys need to respect and make us feel wanted and pay us a living wage. Because, I mean, how many times do we have to have several jobs to live? When are you going to respect us and treat us like part of the team and pay us what we need to live? All these people are out money for coming in and serving you last year. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hello. I'm also a bus driver with the district. I've only been working for... Name? Oh, sorry, Elizabeth Filbert. I've only been working for the district for about 3 years. You've already heard the numbers, where we can go and get a job, make more money, make a living. But I don't think you fully grasp what we have to do as drivers, to where this is why we're asking for a pay increase. This is why we're asking to be looked at as equals in this district. We have to get on a big bus, 40 feet long. We put 50 to 70 kids per bus that we have to keep an eye on while we're driving down the road. We have to keep an eye on the traffic while we're driving down the road. We also, as subs, or it's our new route and we're starting the school year, we have paper turn-by-turns that we have to read while we're driving down the road. So what we're asking for, I don't think it's unreasonable. We have one of the most dangerous jobs in this district. So we're putting our lives on the line, driving kids to and from school. And we are making sure that we do it safely. And we're doing it while we love your children. We get attached to them. We want to see them happy. We want to see them to school. So I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Let me get, you go next. Let me get, okay, Michelle Hambley. I'll call on you next, okay? Thanks.
Hi, I'm Michelle Hambley. I'm a KP resident. I used to live in Gig Harbor. I'm KP now. So I started out earlier, I had written out something, facts, statistics, all that kind of stuff that we do before we come through the board. And then God put it on my heart, that's not what I'm supposed to do tonight. And then I wasn't going to talk because my heart, I have an autistic child, so my heart was like, all of you, that's where my heart went. But then I listened to everybody, and I just need to say this. I just need to say it. If you don't want your children masked, and you don't want your children vaccinated, and you don't want CRT, you don't fit the narrative right now. I today have been called a murderer. I've been told that I don't care about my children. I have biracial children and I have white children. In this room, in the last meeting, I was called a bigot. I want it to stop. I don't want CRT, but I want the real history. I want the stuff that's missing. but I don't want CRT. So I just needed to say that. My child almost killed himself last year. He doesn't want a mask on his face. I don't want a mask on my face. Sexual abuse survivors don't want masks on their face. There's medical reasons people don't want masks on their face. The board, I don't know what you can do, but I know that 3 of you have said stuff to me that tells me you're done and you don't want this anymore. But you guys, Inslee's got a mandate. I don't know when it is that you guys can say enough is enough. Your staff, I stand with them that don't want to be vaccinated. You should not have to put anything in your body that you don't want on your body. That's just it. Period. And nobody should call somebody a murderer because they don't want to put something in their body. Period. And that's where I'm at. Love each other whether you don't agree. I just need to say that. I'm sorry if you're hurt by the resolution, but there's still ways that we can get that stuff that's missing. And there's still ways we can love each other. And by God, I hear anybody say that N-word, believe me, I'm on it, you know? But I just had to say that. I just had to say it. We've got to stop this, and we got to start finding solutions with our school board, because we've got another year gearing up. And I know they're going to mandate vaccines for the children, and I'm not going to get my kids vaccinated just because Inslee says I have to. So what are we going to do now? You know, what are we going to do now? I'm not a murderer. I don't hate my children. The vaccine hasn't been around long enough. I get other vaccines, but I'm not ready to put something in my children that hasn't been around that long. So we need to support and love each other. I'm not a murderer. I'm not a racist, and I love every one of you in here.
Hi, my name is Roger Youngchild. I graduated from Peninsula High School. My boys did. My wife works for you guys. She has for 16 years. It dawned on me this is the time to speak for her. I love her. You guys are lucky to have her. She's a special woman. She came in, there's no social distancing, what she does, paraeducator. There's no time out, there's no time in line to get shots. She was there for you guys. She went to bat for you. You guys need to go to bat for her. She showed her true colors during this pandemic. And what I understand her saying at home, you don't have money? There's no money for them to have a pay raise? I make a pretty good living as a IBW electrician, so I do okay. I don't need your 50 cents, your dollar. But show her respect. Find money to pay what she's worth. Please. She went to bat for you. She showed her true colors. You guys need to go to bat for her. That's it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Hi, my name is, can you hear me okay? My name is Stu Hopkins. I didn't plan on speaking tonight, but my heart tells me otherwise. So, first of all, as a side note, I'm going to speak about masks, but first of all, as a side note, I really appreciate you bus drivers because you've had to deal with my boys over the years, and we've had some good talks with them, so thank you very much. Can you give these guys a raise? Anyway, so on the mask issue, I just, you know, you look at me and you know, the stereotype is probably true. You know, I'm white, straight, Christian male that drives a pickup and owns guns. So there you have it. But I'm also a science guy. And ever since the beginning of this whole thing in masks, something didn't seem right. And the more I tried to figure this out, just looking at data told me all I need to know about the effectivity of these masks. I didn't bring data because I didn't plan to talk, but the virus easily gets through these. In fact, even the government has told us these don't work. Yet look how many of us are wearing these. They've also told us that cloth masks don't work. I see a few KN95s or N95s, whatever they're called, masks, but that's it. So if this was really protecting us, why aren't we all getting sick? Why aren't we all, in the hospital or dying? And before you go thinking what you might think, and that's fine, COVID is very serious. My mother-in-law was 75 years old. She dropped dead all of a sudden in March. It's a pretty passionate subject for me and my wife. We are very against masks as for our children, as we believe that they're socially destructive as far as the psychological development of kids and also the relationship aspect with all of us in public. I'm begging you to please, as individuals, at home, alone at night, please do your own research on this stuff. I want to debate because I want to learn something, okay? There's only a handful of people in my life where I can calmly debate with. My best friend growing up as a child, we couldn't disagree more, but we just had a phone conversation today, listening to each other. And I shared how my incoming freshman went to Tides Day and gym full of people, and this, I don't know, educator, parent, who knows, came up and got in his face because he didn't have a mask on right when he walked in. Well, is that the way we really want to start out? Is this what we're going to do? We're going to traumatize our kids? Adults are going to be bullies? That's something that's completely unacceptable. I love debate. I love disagreement because it hashes out the truth. And your truth is your truth and my truth is my truth, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is the truth, because the truth is. Okay? So please stop watching Fox, CNN, MSNBC, and all that crap. And the Washington Times and the Washington whatever. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but do your own research. It's there. You just have to dig a little bit. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Waymeyer. I'm with the Clerical Union. I don't know if you can hear me. This mask is thick. I'm Elizabeth Waymeyer. I'm with the Clerical Union. I'm also the athletic secretary at Peninsula High School. So I have to work 2 jobs. I've been with the district for 16 years. I shouldn't have to work 2 jobs to keep my household afloat, but I do, because I don't get paid enough. And to be told that you can't give us a raise because there's not enough money feels like an insult, especially since my other job was paying me an extra $4 an hour for hazard pay this whole time. I know that the bus drivers have been working their tails off because I get to arrange all the buses for sports. And I know that we had to fill a whole lot with first student. And I'm scared of what this year is going to bring. It terrifies me. And I'm scared that if we don't get more money, we may not have enough clerical staff. Please, please consider giving us the money that we need to keep our houses afloat. It's in your hands.
Is there an, yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Leanne Salsho. I'm a paraeducator at Gig Harbor High. I've been there for 16 years. I've been with the district for 20. Here's a nice cold fact for you. I take home, as a full-time para 2, My take home is $1,546 a month. I'm homeless. The average apartment in Gig Harbor and surrounding areas is over $1,000. Well over $1,000. I'm on food stamps. Why the heck should I be on food stamps after 20 years with this district? I have been kicked, spit on, screamed at. I've been smashed with doors. And I really hate to say this, but I've also been bullied by some of our staff. Because, yeah, I'm kind of weird. Anyways, I want a home. I want somewhere to live at the end of this month, and it's not because I'm behind in rent. But I am losing my home. Like, I have to be out in a couple days. I don't know where to go. I can't afford anything. I've been looking since June. Even in Tacoma. The only thing I can afford over there is a studio in basically downtown with all the homeless people parked on the street in front of the apartment building that I can afford. And I think it's time to change this. How many more of us, and I am the only breadwinner in my house, and I've always worked 2 full-time jobs up until I was 55. I am now 61. I'm considering working a toll booth because I want to go home. Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Deborah Grove. I'm with Gig Harbor High School. I've been a paraeducator for 20 years. All the years that I've worked, I have been paid below poverty wages. All of you on this board are white and most likely entitled. You have no idea. You think it's a joke. You have no idea. I have children too. I raised them. When you can't go to dinner and you can't pay to let your child play football, you don't have the money. When you put things back at the grocery store, go ahead and smirk. You think it's funny. Please pay us a livable wage and don't throw peanuts at us. Larry Sequist told me that years ago. He said he'd try to help. I've heard trying to help from a lot of people. All of you walk in our shoes and see what it's like not to have enough for this, that, and the other. I'm sure going out to dinner is not Burger King for you, and I'm sure you could afford to see a movie, at least in the last year or two. I don't think any of you truly understand when you think what little bit you want to give us. You don't think we are worth it. I get it. We're the people that are working with the children. We're the hands-on. Please hear us, please. There are other things that we probably should just consider doing. We should just throw our hands up and walk away. I'm sure you could find other people that are willing to live in poverty for another 20 years. Please pay us a livable wage.
My wife is special. You're lucky to have her. I said that, I know, but you realize how hard it is for what these women, because they're mostly women, how hard it is to do the paraeducating? It's not easy. They get beat up. You realize how hard it is. It's an insult to say you don't have a pay raise for them. That damage is done. But they work hard. They're very special people. They take care of special people. You need them. And they went to bat for you. Don't insult them. Come on. Let's be a team. Take care of them. They take care of you. And my wife's still going to take care of you. You don't have to give her no more money. She's still going to do it. She loves what she does. These people are lucky to have her. So come on. Let's be a team. You've heard these stories. How little they get paid? Are you kidding me? Wow. And you need them. Smarten up here. Take care of them. They take care of you, and they're going to take care of you irregardless what happens here, because that's the kind of people they are. Go to bat for them, please. They showed their true colors already. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, I wasn't going to speak either, but I just want to come up here and introduce myself. I'm Kayleen Westford. I'm kind of new to Gig Harbor, but I'm a former high school English teacher in the public sector. I'm also a citizen of this country. And so I just wanted to look around the room and I wanted to acknowledge humanity. And that is each and every individual in here. And I thank you so much for being here. And I want to thank you as well for being our leaders, our represented leaders who we elected or not. But together we're here for a common purpose. And I just want to speak that into existence and to remind myself and everyone what and why we're fighting. And I also want to say that I believe in constitutional freedom and rights. And that's why I'm here, because I do believe that we have the right to choose. I do believe, maybe I've misheard, but I thought I heard Superintendent Kristen Barr say that we wouldn't have required vaccinations. I hope that's true, because I do believe in our rights as citizens of this country, that we have the right to choose. And I want to tell everyone here that I will fight for that, because that's what our forefathers fought for, and we have that right. I was here for the first time the last board meeting, and I heard that the attorneys say that we're beholden to the government, and I want to say that I want to empower each of us that we as citizens have our rights and we are not beholden to the government, and that we will fight. There's a group of us that we will fight for our rights, and that's the right to put what we choose in our bodies and what we don't choose. And also we have a right to medical exemption, and we have a right to religious exemption as well. And so that's what I'm fighting for. So thank you all for being here.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Darren Wassell. I'm a paraeducator at Peninsula High School in the ET&T program. I wasn't expecting to speak. In fact, I'm terrified at the moment, so give me a minute. I got courage because sitting in the back row today is a student I worked with a couple years ago. So seeing him here supporting us, I decided that I'd come up here and support him and them as well. And our classroom, we were there day one. We started off with, I think, 8 in a classroom. We got COVID. Our class went into, well, we went home for 2 weeks. I slept in a different bed, different room. Saw my wife in the kitchen. And then I got the call that said I was free of the COVID. So, but I still stayed home. And luckily it was during a time where I was being paid for it. But, last year was really stressful, because then we went into pods, and I had 3 students and 3 staff, and we are hand over hand. I've seen many board meetings via Zoom, where you guys are sitting in beautiful homes, probably watching us sit in beautiful homes, with the stuff we have behind us, reflecting who we are. But we're in a classroom, touching students, touching desks, doing everything we possibly could to keep it as clean and healthy as possible. The last week of school, a student asked me, Mr. Darren, what is it you want to see for next year? I thought about it. I said, I want hope. hoped to see a football game, basketball game, the prom, my students being nervous, getting dressed up. Yeah, we had a modified version of that. But no, it wasn't certainly like it was 2 years, 3 years ago. And so that's what I told that student. I have hope. And in fact, I came upon many masks in my day, and this one came to me by circumstance. I eBayed it or whatever, and it says, have hope. And I've opted to wear this today in blue in solidarity with my bus drivers, my paraeducators, the tech staff that have already gotten what they've asked, other people in our district who've gotten what they've asked. So they've got hope. They're receiving their hope. My hope is that we have a full school year, September 7th until the end, with a prom, basketball games, football games. I want to throw popcorn out in the crowd and root for the home team. So give me, fellow paraeducators, an alumni student, and my current students hope. That's all I have to say.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Okay.
Thank you. My name is Eric Norby. I'm a bus driver for the district. I've been driving since about 2003. All those years but 3 I've been with the district. I guess as far as pay for a bus driver goes, one of my previous bosses said, and I just looked at this up on the internet, Class A drivers get paid $35 to $55 an hour for driving broccoli around. And you guys are paying your school bus drivers $25 an hour or less to drive what around? I think it's been called the most precious cargo. Now I know you guys realize all this. It's going to be really tough to keep your bus drivers. It all boils down to passing the levy, which I don't think passed this year, and I don't think it's passed for the last 20 years. I believe that that's the school board's job, is to get out there and to find out ways to pass the levy. You guys need to work really hard, and the only thing I can think of is advertisement, advertisement, advertisement. Please start working to start passing our levies, because that will give you the money you need to satisfy all these people's dreams. And I guess that's about all I got to say.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Gentleman behind you first.
I'm a father of a high school student. I just want to thank you for passing the resolution. I don't want CRT taught to my kid. Also, I'm a bus driver, and I was there for 2 years. I started, there was 80 bus drivers. Now there's under 70. And I think if you don't pay more, there's only going to be 50 left. So I think we need to be paid more.
I'm vaccinated, so I'm going to take my mask off. My name's Jennifer Flint. I've been a member of the community for about 18 years. Like others, I didn't intend on speaking tonight. A little bit of background on me. I've been involved in the public school systems since the get-go, PTAs, fundraisers. Some of you may know about the Boundless Playground at Samuel Homestead Park. That was me. That was my committee. My son Ian is 20. He is in the CTP program, Community Transition Program. He is alive today because of medical science. And I think we need to respect science. We need to respect the knowledge we have. And all of it points toward wearing a mask and getting vaccinated unless you have a reason you can't. I'm a cancer survivor. I had breast cancer during COVID. I had to wear a mask. I had to stay away from people. I had to keep my children away from people. And I could not be here also if I had gotten COVID. So it's very personal to me. I know we all have choices. We all make decisions. But sometimes your choices impact others. And I really am strongly concurring with what the state is doing as far as mask mandates right now and encouraging vaccinations. If you want your kids to go to school, if you want to have a job, if you want life back to normal, you have to wear a mask, suck it up, and get a vaccination. That's it.
Is there anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Kelly Harrison. I am one of the bus drivers. I also have a son that's a teacher of the district, and I have a daughter-in-law that's a teacher of the district, so we're kind of bound to this district. To paint a little different picture on the bus drivers, a lot of them have said what our jobs are and what we do. Last year, not only did we show up, we scrubbed down our entire bus every time one group got off before the next group got on. We get calls at 5 o'clock in the morning to show up if we're not a regular driver. If we are a regular driver, I know I'm up at 4 because I've got to be there by 6. We go all day long. When a fellow driver calls and says, hey, my bus broke down, one of us whips over there and helps out. Hey, we get a call over the radio, forgot a kid. Probably 10 of us come on and say, we're at, we'll be there to get him. It's not just a job for us. Everybody says, well, how do you do it? I love a big vehicle and I love kids, but we deserve to get paid for what we're doing. Not only are the paras bit and spit and everything else on, it happens on our buses. Kids have messes on buses. They throw up on buses. They rip our bus seats. There's all kinds of stuff we deal with. But the majority of us that are there every day, we are there for the kids. We love these kids. When you pull up to your bus stop and your kid says, oh, you're back again, yay. When I texted a few of my parents and said, I got bus 12 again because I know I'm the Seahawk bus, they were like, oh my God, the kids are jumping up and down. That's what makes me want to go every day. Yes, I deserve to be paid for what we should get paid. I don't want to go drive Tacoma schools. I want to drive the schools in my community. I want to drive my son's football team when he's playing on a Friday night. But pay me for what I deserve. Pay all of us for what we're doing every day. Because if we don't bring those kids in, if we don't start those buses on the first day of school, nobody will have a job. Because we have that right to not start those buses if we don't get what's coming to us and what's due for us. Just listen to what we're having to say. Yes, I have a spouse. I am here mainly for the benefits, but many of my fellow drivers are taking extra trips, extra whatever they can, because they have rent to pay, a house payment to make, kids to put through things. This isn't rocket science. This is our life and our jobs. And please pay us for what we deserve. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anyone else like to speak? Anyone else? That concludes our community comment. Thank you, everyone, for your comments this evening. Next up, we'll have district reports. First up, we'll have Colleen Spear and Wendy Wotanowicz to discuss communities in school.
Share it, I guess. Yeah. Okay, great. Yep. Awesome, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Colleen Spear. I'm the Executive Director for Communities and Schools of Peninsula. And with me tonight is Wendy Watanowicz. She's one of our site coordinators at Peninsula High School. Our motto is that programs don't change lives, relationships do. So we're here to tell you a little bit tonight about communities and schools and what we do in our district. We are an accredited affiliate of the nation's largest dropout prevention program, dedicated to keeping kids in school and helping them achieve in life. That's our mission. Our headquarters is in Washington, D.C., but we are obviously the local affiliate that works with our school district. We are one of 12 communities and schools affiliates in our state, and each affiliate works with their respective school district. We are incorporated in 2000, and our main office is on the Key Peninsula in the Red Barn Youth Center, and I've been there actually since this is my 18th year there. We also have a satellite office in Gig Harbor. So these are our school service sites. We have 7 full-time site coordinators, and those are the schools. I won't read them all off. You can read them yourself. And then we have, when we have a site coordinator at a school, Wendy will tell you a little bit about what the site coordinator does. And we have a written agreement with 3 other schools that don't have actual site coordinator at their school, but our site coordinators kind of share, taking on some of the students and families, especially if siblings are involved, and the feeder pattern. Our goal this year is to hire a site coordinator at Goodman Middle School. We have completed the feeder pattern on the Key Peninsula from Evergreen all the way up to both Henderson and Peninsula High School. We have site coordinators at all those schools. We really feel a need to add a site coordinator at Goodman so that we can complete the feeder pattern there.
I'm going to talk a little bit about how communities and schools responded to COVID-19 once we found out that school was going to shut down and we had students going to online learning. CIS, every single day, each of us not every day, once a week, each of us contacted every student that was on our caseload just to check in, to keep them connected to school, to keep our relationships with them, and let them know that we were still there for them. Digital navigation for students was, as we all know, a big challenge during that time. We had some students out on the Key Peninsula that, regardless of their financial situation, because of their geographic location, that they had access to no internet. So that was an issue that we definitely stepped up and coordinated with Children's Home Society and the Red Barn, and we problem solved, and we got the groups together and found out who the students were that needed that help and that support, and coordinated with the school district to get the students transportation so that they could do school online like other students and not get behind. Another thing, not only did we get them internet access and be able to help them continue with school, we're looking towards the future too, and working with a group on the Key Peninsula as part of a committee to solve the internet problem long term, not just looking at how did we solve that immediate need, but looking at longer term. As you'll see on the next slide, is it this one? Yeah. Okay. If you'll see, we had a program called Tutors with Tales that was happening when school was in session. And we were able to continue that program virtually, which is really cool. It's in 3 of the elementary schools, and dogs were brought in, and the students got to read to the dogs, because sometimes it's hard to read to another adult or another student, but to read to a dog, they kind of let all their guard down, and it was really incredible to watch those relationships. So that was pretty incredible. Something that's not on the slide that I wanted to make sure and bring up that you guys were aware of is communities and schools also served on the Truancy Board. And if you don't know what the Truancy Board is, it's a group of community members that come together that help students who aren't attending school on a regular basis. And we came together to problem solve with those families, not to, to really find out what the issues were, why their student wasn't attending school, and to help remove those barriers, because we all know how important it is for them to be in attendance, whether virtual or in person. So we really help to problem solve with those families and bring real resources, not just to talk about some solutions, but actually to be there and help them follow through and get some resolve to that. Basic needs, Communities in Schools was there to help get food, water, propane, help take students to mental health appointments, physical appointments. We arrange sports physicals. So we just had 50 students come through and receive a free sports physical. What was surprising is out of that 50, the very first 11 students, we had 3 students that had major mental health issues that needed help immediately. One was transported right to St. Anthony's at that time. So I think that shows a little bit of the value that Communities in Schools place in school, and that we who are not school district employees, but the value that we have, that we can provide not only to the students, but to families. Academic support, so that would be kind of our social emotional support. Academic support, yes, we do have before and after school programs. Yes, we do help with reading, writing, English, math, but we also provide social emotional support. And I think that's really going to be an important thing in coming back to school, is really supporting our kids in those programs. Having our middle schools have a classroom open so that students who aren't comfortable in the classroom can come hang out in a small group situation and be able to have lunch. How often do I walk through the hallways and find a student trying to find somewhere that they're comfortable to eat lunch or find a friend? So they know that they can come to our offices and connect with a trusting adult, and our job is to build those relationships with them so that they want to be at school, so that they know that they have a safe person, another safe person, I should say, that they can connect with. Adulting 101, oh my gosh, this has been a biggie. So many, I work at the high school, so many of our students don't have a state ID. They don't have a driver's license. They don't know how to go about that. They don't have a bank account. How successful can you be as an 18-year-old launching when you don't have a Washington state ID? You can't get a job. You can't get a driver's license. You can't do hardly anything without those things. So our job is to help empower and reach those students that need that help, that support. We physically take them, drive them to take their driver's test, to get their ID. So there's definitely a role that the school district can't fill that we can fill, that we can meet those students' needs so they can go out in the community and be successful as an adult. Parent engagement, that's another really fun thing. We really want to connect with parents and families, and we do that not by just what we say, but by what we do. So if we promise a family, yes, we're going to figure out a way how to help you, how to support you, how to get through this, then we do that.
Great, thanks, Wendy.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch base just real quickly on the academic support. Pre-COVID, we had about 130 volunteers help our students who are referred to our site coordinators in their caseloads, both during school in small groups, and then after school. We call them our after school reading and math mentoring programs. And we're gearing up. We know that's not going to be the same amount this year, but we're gearing up right now. Our volunteer coordinator is calling each and every one of them to make sure that they're vaccinated, to see if they're ready to come back to school. And most of our schools, we are one-on-one with students, and it really empowers them. So just real briefly, our 2019-20, I usually at the end of every school year I'd come talk to the school board, but because of COVID we didn't do that at the end of 2020. So these are our outcomes that we had at the last academic year, and you'll see those 80% made progress on attendance, 97 reached their behavior goals, 89 made progress on academic goals. We had 381 case managed students, and we had over 4,300 students who received whole school supports. Whole school supports are things like parent literacy nights or physicals, those kind of things. So we're not case managing them. And there are 2021 student outcomes, which was our COVID year. I think we did great, being that we still keep track of the same indicators, and we had 65% made progress on their attendance, 80 on their behavior, 91 on their academic, and we had 135 case managed students, and over 3,500 students received whole school supports. We had clothing swaps. We helped with rental assistance. We write grants and get corporate donations. We are an independent affiliate, even though we're part of a national organization. We have our own board of directors. We raise all our own money. This shows you a little bit about how lean we are. We have 17 staff, and our budget is $726,000. This next school year. Actually, that was last school year. That breaks down where we receive our money: 30% foundations, 25% government, county, which is a Pierce County Youth Violence Prevention grant, 18% from individuals, 16% from Peninsula School District, corporate 6%, other grants 5%. Our budget this next year will be $782,000. We want to expand. We want to expand to additional school, which is about $65,000. That includes a full-time site coordinator, case management for both Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 services. So that's individual, small group, and whole school. And all supplies and administrative expenses like laptops, printers, overhead, copies, all that kind of thing. So, and then we, again, we'd like to expand to Goodman this next year. We have a program committee, and John Helwig, the assistant superintendent, is on our board, and he also is the chair of our program committee. And we make sure that all of our tests and things that we do are in alignment with PSD curriculum. And so all of our metrics are based on what Peninsula School District executes. And that is it. We're all in for kids. So if there's any questions, we'd be happy to take them right now.
Sure. You want to go first, Laura?
Sure. Thanks for coming. It's so great to hear
Good
about
to see you guys.
what you guys are doing, and just want to say how much I appreciate what you guys do and have seen firsthand. I know Robin at Henderson Bay, and so I've gotten to see through her a lot of the relationships. That's the thing that impresses me the most, is the relationships that are built through your program, and just the confidence. Our student board member a couple years ago was someone who had been involved in the program, and so she just had really, by her own admission, gained so much confidence, and so that was fantastic. My question is simple. I just was wondering, things like goals, like how is something like a behavior goal measured?
We keep track, and it's a national data management system, and Penny can speak to it, but our site coordinators pick the goals for the students based on the building achievement plan, and so it's in alignment with what the principal is wanting for the year.
So individual student, are you talking about individual student goals?
Well, just that you were just showing the progress and stuff, and it just made me wonder how are those things measured, just out of curiosity.
So we measure based on once a month, and sometimes once a week. We have meetings with counselor, teachers, principal, vice principals, and we set the goals for individuals and the school as a whole. And then every single month we all come together and evaluate what has been done for students individually and then overall students as a whole. And every time one of us meets, every time as a site coordinator that I meet with a student, it's documented in a system that we have, and that helps us at the end of the year. It helps us, well, excuse me, not at the end of the year, but at the end of every semester or quarter, depending on what school we're at. It helps us evaluate how much progress that we made with that student based on feedback from staff and from the students themselves.
Okay.
And from what we've documented.
Thank you.
It's the hardest part of the night.
It's like Wayne's World, camera one, camera two. Also, I wanted to thank you for coming out. I will share a funny story for a little levity. One of my first experiences with your organization was a couple of years ago at the Kenny and Dolly party. So my husband and I dressed up, and my kids thought we were Marge Simpson and He-Man. So I guess we didn't do a great job with the costume, but so thank you for that fun night. Unfortunately, there's photographic evidence, so it comes up from time to time. That night, though, there is some value to the story. That night, we had an opportunity to hear from some graduates who had been through your program, and it really struck home just how important the work that you do is. So thank you for your ongoing commitment to that. My question is, when I look at the list of schools, it's hard to see not every school up there, because I think we can recognize that there's a need across our district. So when you're looking at Goodman, my question is, what are the statistics that you're looking at to pick that? And is there a way to maybe share schools or have a presence in schools if a need arises?
Okay, so yeah, the first part of that question.
Kind of spawned a follow-on, though, because I was thinking about the your lunch program, which I love. I came from another district where we had a lunch table that we try to make it so that people would come sit together, but unless we had something to do there, nobody would want to go sit at that table. So we did a trivia question of the day, and we always had staff members rotating or kids rotating to kind of open up those conversations so anyone who didn't have a lunch friend could go and sit and hopefully make a friend from there. So I wonder if there is an opportunity through communities and schools to do some mentorship with maybe our student leaders so they can lead some programs like that at the schools where we don't have a presence.
Yeah, we do have lunch, what we call lunch bunch at several, we call it lunch bunch at our elementary school. Oh, okay, there you go. Okay. Lunch bunch at our elementary schools, and then Wendy also has had a program. It was so cool. You want to talk about they didn't even know like how to set a table and put the silverware in the right place, and you want to talk about that?
That just kind of organically happened.
Yeah.
During a lunch hour. It's just like everyday stuff, but it kind of organically happened. Oh, they were worried because they were all going to dinner for prom.
Oh,
so
that's
how
what
many of us
yeah.
have been nervous already when you're, going on a date and you're maybe going with someone that just asked you maybe 2 weeks ago and they wanted to know like what silverware to use during prom because no one had ever taught them when you go to a restaurant. Why are there 3 forks or 2 forks, and why is the table set like that? So it was just something that sort of organically happened, but it was when you're in high school and you're going to prom on a date or with a group of friends, that's a real, to us as adults, it might seem something smaller, but to a teen who's having those first experiences, that was a big deal, and I didn't realize it until it came up just in casual conversation, and that's how things really happen with our program, is we build relationships with students. They begin to trust us. Sometimes they tell us more than we probably really need to know, but knowledge is power, right? So the more that we know about them and they begin to open up to us, the other cool thing that happens with students in our program is once they get to know us and they trust us, they tell their friends. So even though I may have been off the month of August because we did summer school, do you know how many phone calls I still got from students saying, hey, my friend, or I met someone that moved, or this person got kicked out of their home? They're still contacting us. They're still calling us because of those relationships. Isn't that what we want? Isn't that what we want for our kids in school? To have people that they can trust, that's been given, and it's amazing opportunity. So to be able to have that trust from them.
And we do bring in older students if they can get away during school to help with those kids too. And mentor. Yeah, we have quite a few high school mentors. Yes. I don't know, is she?
I'd like to commend you on the academic growth.
Oh.
Because it shows that they were up 89% before against COVID,
Mm.
then well, this year it was 91%, so that is an increase in the academic performance of the students. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Graduation is probably, not only in high school graduation, but seeing them go from middle to high school is probably one of our most incredible times, is watching someone who maybe had given up hope academically. They're so swamped academically.
Mhm.
They're in the place where I don't know if I'm ever going to catch up. Can I ever catch up? And then, as that relationship builds, they start to trust and they start to gain confidence and they make it, and then oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay. I'll catch you next time.
It's okay. You can keep talking if you want. Yeah.
But should I repeat what I said, or? Okay, we're good. That's all I had to say, is that,
Well, I just want to say thank you. I've been a big supporter for a long, long time. And one of my pet projects is doing anything we can to help kids that we're going to lose. And we lose way too many kids. And so everything you're doing is just touching my heart, because that's what we need to do. We need to touch each of these kids in a way that's going to bring them forward. And I also want to say thank you for what you've done to a lot of for a lot of our retired people in our community, because they feel like they've really got a place when they come in and help out. I've heard that over and over from several of your volunteers that feel like it's just a wonderful, wonderful place to be. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Can I just add one more thing? I just really quickly want to touch base because it came up when we were talking about coming back to school and keeping our families in our community. It's so frustrating to see some of our families who are experiencing homelessness or who are in danger of losing their homes. We want to keep those families in our community and in our schools where they're comfortable and they're ready to learn. And that's one thing that we've been gearing up for over the summer, is working with the county, taking extra classes, taking training to be able to help and support those families that are going to need that help and support so that they don't have to leave our community. We want them here and we want them to stay. So that's one big thing on our list with school starting up again.
And just one other side note, I know we are limited on time. I also want to say our site coordinators have really, the pandemic has really surfaced our Guatemalan community and the needs, the dire needs that they face right now. And 3 of our site coordinators are learning Spanish to be able to guide them to their resources, help them fill out forms that aren't translated. So anyway, that's another thing that we've been challenged with, and the needs that we're meeting right now during the pandemic.
So Colleen, I know you can never have too many counselors, especially right now. The Peninsula School District, I believe, has more counselors per capita than any school district in the state, but which is great. But it'd be nice to have more. But how do you interact and augment the counselors, especially in this time with the COVID and them being out of school and catching up? So how do you help augment the counselors?
I can say a couple words, and then Wendy actually does it every day, so she'll probably answer it better than I do. But all of our site coordinators are on whatever they call it at their school. It's different at each school, but the student support team or the school, the SSP or whatever. But our site coordinators are part of that team, and so they coordinate through Google Docs or whatever document they have to make sure that the needs of the students are being met. Even though we do have a lot of counselors, what we hear is that they're just so overwhelmed, and that they aren't able to leave the building and things like that. So we have a team that we always make sure that there's 2 people in a car if we're taking it. Like if one time Wendy had a kid that punched the vending machine or something and busted his hand in the middle of the school day, and so just things like that. Wendy, do you want to say any more about that?
So we work as a team with the school counselors. School counselors don't have the time or the space or the allowance to do the things that we do. They're not allowed to put a student in their car and transport them to a mental health appointment, to take them to the dentist, to go pick up groceries and get the groceries to the home. So we have the freedom and the ability and the agreement with the school district that we can provide safely and provide those needs for the students and work with the school counselors. Everything that I do is immediately emailed to that particular student's counselor. So as a group, and then we also meet once a week as a group and talk about the individual needs of the students and the families. But there's no way that the counselors can do and meet the individual needs and the width of the need that the particular students need. They're spending a lot of time on schedules and academic, and they're doing emotional social support too, but they don't have time to jump in a car and get them the mental health help or support the family in getting resources. And we already have all of those connections built in. So it's really about sharing our resources and connecting the staff and the families with what they need to be successful.
And to follow up on what Natalie said about, would you see, if we said we would be willing to go forward and add in a new coordinator that you suggested, would you see value added if you were to maybe have that person share a school, like between two, even though it might be a bit more of a challenge, but would you still see the benefit of co-sharing, at least for a while? If maybe down the road you get another one, but what would you prefer not to do that, I guess?
Yeah, I personally, having tried to do that and building relationships in two different buildings and only having half a day or every other day, there's no sense of consistency, and that's what our students need most. That's what we've found is our recipe for success, is they know that we're going to be there when we say we're going to be there, and they know where to find us. And dividing the schedule like that between both buildings makes it very inconsistent and hard to build those relationships, the deep relationships that we need with the student and their families. It makes it really difficult when you're divided between buildings.
Okay.
You just don't get the same quality.
And I don't know if I missed it during your brief, but did you explain, because I'm hearing impaired, did you explain why you chose Goodman over Kopachuk? If I missed that, I apologize, but what was the reason for Goodman?
So the reason for Goodman largely is the feeder pattern from the elementary schools, because we have site coordinators, like we have a site coordinator at Harbor Heights. A lot of our EL kids from the Harbor Heights obviously go to Goodman, and we've already finding ourselves having to pull away from those students and families because we don't have a site coordinator there anymore. And so Goodman, mostly because of the feeder pattern, and also just they want us. I mean, it's been they've been asking for quite, Ty had a site coordinator at Minter, and so he's just like, oh my gosh, we need a site coordinator to help us meet all of our student and family needs. So those, and then also, every school needs academic and SEL supports. It doesn't matter if even affluent families even need SEL and academic support. So,
how long would it take to have one on site? Like if we said move forward, how long would it take?
I think we could have one in a couple months.
A couple months.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Trained and ready.
Okay. You got any more questions?
Do you do the training?
We do the training, yes, and we have a state office and Federal Way that also helps us with training.
So are these sociologists or counselors, or what's the best?
That's a good question. We have, Wendy comes from Catholic Community Services. She is a social worker. We have, let's see, Robin, Lara, Kirsten, pretty much almost all teachers that just want to do something different, want to go deeper with the families and students. And we have an amazing team. We just had a retreat last weekend, and it was pretty awesome.
So, you want to say anything?
I do.
Good. Okay.
I was just waiting.
Okay.
So I think it's really important to bracket out and to highlight your program because you are one of 12.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really important nested whole child support, especially at a time where we know that the data for our students in Peninsula, especially for secondary, we have 10% of our students feel like they belong, and this is prior to COVID.
Yeah.
And 70%, of our elementary students feel like they belong. But that data set is super important. So thank you for your hard work. You are absolutely right. When I was in a large urban district, we had a variety of different partners that came in, but probably not any of them did the work that you could do, putting them in a car and doing the work really of a community member, a dear friend and trusted adult in ways that we cannot do from the school setting. So I want to thank you for your hard work. We are really, really lucky in Peninsula to have this kind of support. And I think that there are so many other possibilities. Colleen and I have met, and we are kindred spirits. So I look forward and PLU grads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go Lutes.
Go Lutes. But really to look at the possibilities, because even tonight we were hearing of kind of some social emotional, some belonging, some kind of cultural things. And so I look forward to further conversations about how do we influence culture together as a community. So thank you for your hard work. We are very, very lucky. And I mean, quite honestly, if we could have you in every single school, we would be better for it. So thank you for your hard work.
So can I ask about the site coordinator? So I don't know if this question is for Karen, but if the board was, it's okay, you don't have to come, just, if the board was to decide to move forward with a site coordinator for Goodman, is that something that would just happen? Or does the board have to make a motion and approve to do that? So I'm just asking you since it's CFO. Or whoever in the room can answer that question. John? Who do I?
So I think you would direct me
Okay.
to look into that further and bring it forward to you as board.
Oh, at a future date or tonight? Could we?
At a future date.
Oh, okay, so not tonight. Okay.
Correct? Okay, I was looking.
Okay, let's do that then. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
So David, you could direct me right now.
How about I direct you to do that?
Yeah.
I accept.
Okay, all right, we'll get back to you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Going to take a 5-minute break before we move on to the budget discussion. We need to reconvene. Thank you. So I misspoke before we went on a break. I said next up was going to be the budget, but it's actually a report on the vaccine mandate. Caroline Anholt. Is your mic on?
Get it for me, Chris, please. I'll move my mask down. I'm probably talking too low.
Yep, that would help. Yeah.
Okay. Is that better?
Yep.
Okay, so I don't technically have a report, but I did want to share that we are following the state mandate, and yesterday we sent out a communication to our staff regarding vaccinations, and that is what you are seeing on the screen there. Basically, letting our staff know that they will need to get vaccinated or apply for an exemption per the state. So I was told you guys might have some questions.
I can't read it because they're going by too fast. Is there a way to make it smaller so we can see more on this page?
Do you want to just ask me maybe
Sure.
some questions specifically? Sure. I mean,
yeah.
Okay.
So can I read something first?
Sure.
Okay. Yesterday, the Office of Public Instruction, Chris Reichdahl, who is the superintendent, sent a letter to all school districts and superintendents in the state of Washington. This is just a little background. I'm going to read his letter to the school board just for clarification. So, dear superintendents and school board directors, at the end of July, I informed you that OSPI intended to withhold funds from school districts who willfully fail to comply with the health and safety measure required by Governor Inslee. This was yesterday, today we filed an emergency rule that defines OSPI's process for districts who willfully fail to comply with the requirements. You will see that the rule applies to both the mask mandate as well as a vaccination mandate for school employees. The rule goes into effect immediately, which was yesterday. For both mandates, the process at a high level will be as follows. Upon OSPI's determination that a local education agency has willfully failed to comply with the governor's order, OSPI will provide a first notice to the LEA, which is school district. The LEA will have 15 days upon receipt of the first notice to provide verification of compliance to OSPI. Verification means a resolution passed by the LEA rescinding any actions previously taken prohibiting compliance. If corrective action is not taken within 15 days of OSPI's first notice, OSPI will provide a second notice to the LEA. The second notice will identify a 5-day deadline for corrective action. If the LEA does not provide verification of compliance prior to the 5-day deadline in the second notice, OSPI may withhold, it's actually been corrected, will withhold the LEA's subsequent monthly apportionment payments until the LEA comes into compliance. The LEA will be eligible to receive any withheld apportionment payment minus any reduction included under the next bullet when OSPI has determined that the LEA is complying with the governor's order. If the LEA does not comply with the requirements in the governor's order for 2 monthly apportionment cycles, any subsequent state basic education payments withheld for noncompliance will be reduced proportionately by a ratio equal to the number of school days held while the LEA was in violation of the order, divided by 180 school days. Since this is an emergency rule with immediate implementation, we are filing and implementing the rule without seeking public comment. In the coming months, we will take action to make this rule permanent, and we will seek public comment at that time. We will keep you informed of our timeline and provide plenty of opportunities for you and your community members to engage with us and provide feedback. The health and safety measures required by the Department of Health and the Governor's Office are implemented following extensive research by public health experts. Statewide, nationwide, and global data and research show us that universal masking and widespread vaccinations are the two most effective measures our school can utilize to combat virus spread. If there is minimal virus spread, the likelihood that you will need to close classrooms or entire schools is low. These safety measures work, and they are not at the discretion of local school boards or superintendents. let me know if you have any questions. Chris Reichel. I just want to provide that for background because we had an attorney last month that discussed the mask mandate. So, anyone have a question or comment for Caroline? Chuck?
I'm still absorbing it. I read it all yesterday and all. Yeah, I'm saddened because we're being threatened. Is there a way to add antigen testing as one of the criteria? So if somebody's had COVID, rather than getting the vaccine, if they were to get an antibody test.
So no, that was not part of the mandate that the state put out.
So even though that's science, they're not accepting it. Okay.
Caroline, could you talk through perhaps what we've learned about if a person has a religious exemption requirement, maybe talk through what we're going to do as the HR and that what potential accommodations could be as well. That might be helpful as a starting point. Yeah. And then the medical exemption information, we haven't received the actual medical form, but we have received the other form. Correct. That might be a good spot to start with.
Okay. So if any of our employees have a medical or religious exemption, they can fill out a form, and like Creston indicated, we do not have the medical form at this point, but we are waiting for that from OSPI. We did get from OSPI a recommended or a form that they have produced, and that is what we have given to all of our employees. There was a link to that in the document we sent out yesterday, where they can fill that out to request a religious exemption. Part of the religious exemption is they are answering some questions on that form. Once that is done, that comes to the HR department, and we go through an interactive process with all of our employees that have requested an exemption. And after that's done, and if we grant the if we deem it meets the guidelines, because the state has also given us guidelines to do that religious exemption. If an employee meets those guidelines, then through the interactive process, we can offer things like, yes, you could be unvaccinated. We're approving your exemption, but some of the things that we could put in place are weekly testing or bi-weekly testing, or making sure that they always stay 6 feet apart, but that's kind of what everybody has to do right now. Wear specific masks, so we might request that they wear a KN95 mask instead of, just a paper mask or whatever. So things like that are some of the things that we might have to make accommodations and or additional safety requirements is really what it is.
Can I just make it, this happened last month, your statement that the 6 foot requirement, but I brought this up last month. The governor said that we were at a 3 foot distancing, and you could even waive the 3 foot if you couldn't open your school. So I'm wondering, a month ago we had 3 foot spacing, now we're at 6, but the governor didn't change it from 3 to 6. So can you clarify, clean that up for me?
Did you want to? All right, I'm going to clarify that. So it is 6 feet with grown-ups, with adults. It is 3 feet with children. That's what the guidance says. Or as closely defined, I'm looking at Karen for the language, as close to 3 feet as possible. Something of that nature. But it is, so for our adults, it is 6 feet.
It's really harder than it looks. Okay, I have several questions that have come up over the last week, so I'll just kind of fire them at you if that's okay. Number one, and probably the most important, can you confirm that this mandate is for staff only? It does not apply to students at this time?
Correct. It is only for staff.
Okay. Are parents able to ask about staff members' vaccination status?
No, we are not able to give confidential medical information.
Okay, so this applies to staff and then also regular volunteers. Have we defined a number of hours in the building to fall under this mandate for volunteers?
That has not been defined yet.
Okay, thank you for your answers, Chief. But will this possibly be an avenue to getting volunteers back in the classroom, to get parents back in there?
I believe we are planning at this moment to have volunteers, and yeah.
Okay.
I'll expand. Caroline's so good at it. She should be an attorney. She just gives that short and sweet and not more.
That's what we want.
The difference that we are hearing between a visitor, so if a family comes to back to school night, they would come in with their child, everyone would be masked, they would be considered a visitor. A volunteer would be someone like every Monday you come and you mentor students for mathematics, you have a certain group of students, and then therefore they would be considered a volunteer. So we'll define that as that goes, but that's my understanding. So visitors are not required to be, well, we do not have to check vaccination status. Volunteers do fall under that. There's also contractors, and that's been a very long conversation. We don't have all the answers for that yet.
Okay. I'm just trying to make the most sense of the order. So you talked about the difference a little bit between accommodation and exemption. If you have a religious exemption, is that a true exemption where you are exempt from the vaccine and you keep your position, or is it possible that you would be exempt from the vaccine but maybe move to another, like a remote teaching position instead of a classroom or something like that?
That is going to be a part of the interactive process. So depending on, certain jobs might need to be, need to be a transfer or those kinds of things if that is an accommodation that we need to do.
Okay. And just because we're all curious about how this is going to work, can you walk through what the process would be to verify your vaccination status or apply for an exemption, or how that's going to look with a pretty large district? How are you going to roll through all of our employees?
So as far as the vaccination verification, we have site coordinators at every building that have gone through HIPAA training for the confidentiality piece, and they are the ones who are actually getting the verification from the employees in their buildings. Most of those are your assistant principals and your principals who are taking on that role. So they are bringing their vaccination proof to the to their COVID supervisor, and they are. We have a database that they are filling out, saying that I have visually verified that they have a vaccination, and putting their initials by it that they've acknowledged that. This document that we just sent out yesterday, or this letter that we sent out yesterday, has the link to the exemption forms, at least at this point for religion. Once we get the one for medical, we'll be sending that out. So that all goes right into a database that only the HR department sees. So it's like basically a survey. It's the same questions that are that came from the state, and it's a survey that employees fill out, and then that comes to the HR department, and then the HR department will be going through an interactive process with all of the employees that request an exemption.
Okay. And then my last question that has come up is, this relates to the current vaccine as it stands, or is it an open-ended mandate that would include future boosters?
I'm not positive on that, but I believe it only counts for the current vaccine. It does not, I don't believe the order said anything about boosters at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
And this is every employee of the district, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
I was just saying, do you have any? Yep, go ahead, Chuck.
You have any idea how many we might lose and what we'll do?
No, at this moment I do not.
Okay.
I mean, I just sent this out yesterday, so I'm,
Okay.
It'll be a process.
I mean, I've heard in the rumor mill there's some people that are just going to walk away. So
that could happen.
Yeah.
I
No, I
will
mean, we
say,
got-
Chuck, I will say that, we really care about our employees. This is a hard process for
Oh,
all of us.
gosh, yeah.
This is really hard on me being in HR.
Yeah.
Because I understand how everybody feels, and this
Yeah.
is a difficult process for the district.
Yeah.
And we're trying to do this as compassionately as possible.
Yeah.
And hopefully people don't feel that they have to leave their jobs.
Yeah. Well, I hope that we make the process, if they do file the religious exemption or something like that, we make that as easy as possible. I've heard rumors about how lengthy that process is, also the paperwork that's involved in the confirming of that. And it almost feels like we're being told to purge anybody that doesn't have the ideology.
Yeah, I would disagree with that. I don't know if I can, but I am.
That's what it feels like.
If we look at it is a survey, but I believe it's 5 questions, so it's not it's not 6 pages or anything lengthy like that.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of the interactive process is really about. More about understanding and what other safety requirements we're going to have to put in place to make sure the rest of our staff and the rest of our and all of our students that are unable to get vaccinated are also protected. So it kind of goes to both, to both of that.
Yeah.
So Chuck, I'd like to actually speak to that. Caroline and Karen and I have met for a long time and talking about the fact that, this is very unfortunate. It is requiring a lot of human touch to this, making sure that our staff know and understand that they will not be discriminated based upon any of the guidelines. There are laws about that as well. And so I just want to reiterate and say this is a confidential conversation. It's very small. In fact, right now it's just with Caroline in our HR department. That information is not going to be public knowledge. And these are hard times. And to do this right before school when there are many other things in the HR department and the budget department, as well as our employees getting ready to serve children on September 7th, we are trying to do this in a way that is humane and loving, because we have amazing staff here in Peninsula School District. And so taking this proclamation, doing what we must in ways that are loving and confidential and during a pandemic is really not an easy thing. So I just want to hats off to our HR department and all of our COVID supervisors. They are going above and beyond, and we didn't know this was going to happen. So we are doing one more turn. I think this is number 11. Right before school. So I just want to thank you, and I also want to assure our staff that this is not a long process. It really is not. We've looked at the form, and people don't even have to fill out the form. They actually can just sit down with Caroline.
Correct.
And talk with her, and then it's done. And so whatever that looks like, we don't understand and know what the medical looks like, but people also have time. So we're looking at October as a deadline. And so, but we really encourage our staff to reach out to either their building principal or directly to Caroline and read the memo. Okay? Thank you.
I'm just curious, I thought of a question. Do we know, I know my own employer had every employee a month or so ago do a very simple attestation form, and all it asked was, have you been vaccinated, have you not? And it just was so they could have some idea what they were dealing with as a workforce. And so do we have some idea, or has that ever been done? As far as the numbers of persons that this might affect if...
No, we have not. I mean, obviously this summer, most of our staff is not working, so no, we have not requested that.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I have an audience. Thank you. Tonight we're going to talk about the budgets, all 5 of them. We'll start with the general fund. This is where our day-to-day activities happen. This is the, is this on? Okay. This is where, this is our largest budget, and I'm going to take you through the budget. We've already kind of had conversation last week about the budget, so I'm going to go through it pretty quickly because it is getting late. But there are some new things in here that we have to provide, and so I will slow down for those slides. But if you have any questions, just let me know, stop me as we go along. To start with, we'll look at enrollment. Our ending enrollment for this year is 8,300, a little over. For budget next year, we're looking at 9,121. Where the subtotal is, those are students that are in our classrooms. And then we have our other programs that are our Global Virtual Academy, Running Start, and then we have an Open Doors Fresh Start. It's a re-engagement program. And you can see that we have 20 slots available, so we budget for the 20 slots. This year we were able to capture 5.87 FTE for students coming into this program. This is kind of what has happened over the last couple of years. So in 2019-20, we ended the year at 8,835. We dropped to 7,926 this last year. These are building students, so there's no Running Start, doesn't include Running Start, and it doesn't include ALE. And then what we're planning for next year is 8,551. So we're not quite getting back up to where we were in 1920, but we think that it's a pretty healthy start. It's about 60% of what we lost. And so we're starting to see kids' registrations. We've been monitoring them over the summer. They are coming in over the last month. Typically in August, we start to see a little bit of a surge. We're starting to not see that surge, so we're not really sure. We're still low in kinder, so but the other grade levels are picking up, and so we're pretty comfortable with where we're at right now. For our revenues, couple of highlights. We've got our local taxes. This is our local levy that is current. It will be renewed in 2023. We will run out, so we will have to renew it in 2023. Our local non-tax, this is where we're doing, where we collect donations, any sale of goods, facility rentals, investment earnings, and E-rate are our primary sources. Again, we eliminated class fees and pay to participate fees this last year, and we're going to continue that. And so this category is typically around $3 million, and we've reduced it to about $1 million, a little over. Our state apportionment is coming in at $87 million. Our state programs are coming in a little over $20 million, and federal programs a little over $8 million. And this is where we are collecting some additional funding, federal funding from that support the school lunch program. That is for all kids this next year. They're continuing what they started last year, and it will continue into next year. So all students will get lunches if they want them. Whether they're free or reduced, no, we will track information about that, and we are still taking applications, but no student will have to pay for a lunch. The other increase to this category for this year is the ESSER funding. ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, and don't ask me what the acronyms is for. But this is federal funding that was given to states and schools to support COVID expenses, and there are rules about how we can use the funds. This was allocated based on a Title I formula. We are not a high poverty district, so we did not receive a lot. We received about $4.7 million in ESSER funding, whereas because our Title I, our poverty level is only around 20 for the district. So where a lot of other districts, high poverty districts, are receiving a lot more than that, our amount is only 4.7. Of that, we spent about a little over 600 this last year, 600,000 this last year, and the balance we've budgeted as revenue for this next year to help support what we're going to do. So total revenues that we're looking at is 142 million. And this is what it looks like. You can see state is the largest portion, coming up at about 76%. We have our local taxes, which is the next category, and then the federal piece is a little bit over 5%. For our expenditures, we have, I'm reporting them to you by object code, so we have certificated salaries coming in a little over $66 million. Classified salaries coming in over 23. Our health benefits, our employee fringe and health benefits coming in at $34 million. Supplies for classrooms, supplies for departments, any supply, type of supply or devices, furniture, technology, that's coming in a little over $9 million. Our purchase services, which is utilities, our food service contract, insurance, any other contracted services, that's coming in a little over $14 million. We have travel at $253,000, and we have capital outlay at $218,000. So a total of $149 million in expenditures. And this is what it looks like. A little over 83% of our budget is people costs. And we're in the business, we're a people business, and so that's where it should be. One of the things that we have to do for budget adoption is we have to do what is called the MSOC disclosure. The MSOC is material, supplies, and operating costs. We receive an MSOC allocation through our state apportionment. That amount is a little over $11 million. What we have to do is we have to say, of our expenditures, how much are we spending on MSOC? And we need to verify that we're spending more than what our state allocation is. So there are other sources that we get besides apportionment, but we have to basically say that we're using what we got for MSOC through the state and then some. So if we were reporting a positive number here, we have not spent the state MSOC funding, and we would have to go back and redo our budget to make sure that we're using the dollars that were given to us for MSOC as MSOC expenses. We are in the negative. We spend more on MSOC costs than what we received, and so we are passing the disclosure. This is something that came about several years ago, and it's something that we have to do every time we do a budget adoption. A little bit about our levy. This is our levy calculation, keeping in mind that it's 2 calendar years. And then we get our percentages. We get our fall collection, 45% of fall collection, and then 54% of our next year's spring collection. And so our total revenues for levy this next year in the fiscal budget is $24 million. Likewise, we have an expenditure, we have an enrichment levy spending plan. So how are we going to spend those dollars? And these are the various categories and how we're going to spend those dollars. Staffing allocations over our state-funded FTE. So our state apportionment is through the state prototypical funding model. There's a special calculation. It doesn't give us all the staff that we need, and so any staff that we are bringing on or staffing costs that we're incurring over and above what we're allocated through the state, we are charging as enrichment. It's an enhancement. We pay for our extracurricular athletics in the spending model or in the spending plan. We have professional development activities. We have our maintenance and safety projects budgeted here. We have numerous allocations for supplies and equipment, both in departments and in the buildings. And we also have supplemental support, instructional support. So this is where we pay for communities and schools. This is where we pay for intervention programs. We have after-school activity runs that we provide. We have junior achievement. And then we also provide some midday transportation for various movement of students. So again, it matches the revenue. It's a little over $24 million. So this is the summary of our general fund and our budget. Quickly, I'll just go through our estimated actuals. We think we're going to end this year, this current school year, or fiscal year, at a little over $15 million. So that will be our starting point. It is an estimate, but we believe that it's highly likely. We received some stabilization funding this year that is rolling into our fund balance that will help us get over the hump this next year because we have reduced enrollment, we haven't quite gotten up there, and we have increased costs. So starting with a beginning fund balance of $15 million, adding revenues of $142 million, taking away expenditures of $149 million, we're estimating an ending fund balance of $8,008,000. Of that, 2.5 is restricted, and the balance is 6.3, which is 4.22% of our budgeted expenditures. This is a breakdown of the ending fund balance. As you can see, it's minimal. We have carryover, so in your estimated actuals column, you'll see the carryover balance of $2.7 million. This is pretty typical. What we do is we build budget capacity in the next year so that any carryover that falls into fund balance isn't spent. We can allocate it so that buildings and departments can use those funds in the future. So this is the new piece this year. We are also required to do a 4-year forecast. And so we start with the budget, the current budget that we're proposing, and we walk through that, and then we forecast for 3 years out. And what I can say is that based on the ending fund balance that we are projecting of $8.8 million, we can't continue to do that. We can't continue to hit our fund balance by $6 million each year. The goal really is that your ongoing revenues match your ongoing expenditures. And that's really where you want to be. So early on this year, we are going to have some conversations about what are we going to do for next year. So when we look at 22-23, we believe, we are projecting that our revenues are not going to increase that much. We're going to have lower students than we did in 2019-20. We're still playing catch up. We've got to reverse those expenditures. So without significant increases in our levy, because our levy is capped, remember it's funded by per student. So when our students count goes down, even though we're getting IPD or CPI on that price per student, our increase to levy is not that much. And you can see it's only about $500,000 for 22-23. We're also losing our ESSER funding. So ESSER funding was a one-time deal. So if we use it and we spend it in 21-22, this next fiscal year, it won't be available in the following year. So we have to drop that out. So you'll see that the federal level, we're dropping down to about $4.7 million. And that's because of the loss of the ESSER funding that we won't be getting in the future. So as we look at this, we know that most of our revenue is going to increase by IPD. IPD is supposed to be 1.7% in 22-23. That's not a significant increase. So our revenues, we're looking at $143 million over just a slight increase over what we have in the current year, or this next year. For 23-24, you can see we're projecting an increase in student enrollment. So going from 9,292 to 9,402, we're still chasing and trying to get to that where we ended in 1920, and this'll probably take us to where that was. And so, based on what we're projecting, with the student enrollment increase, we believe that the revenues will be at $146 million. And in 2024-25, we are continuing to grow, we believe, and we will be at 9,534. We will need some additional staffing, and so we've made some adjustments along the way, and we believe that our revenues will be at about $151 million. Keeping in mind that in 2023, we have to go out and renew our levy. So this is making an assumption that we pass our levy and that we can continue to be funded by the per student amount. Let's see, I don't know if there's any other comments here, but that's the revenue. Does anyone have questions about revenues? Okay.
Age. So you're predicting a pretty good drop in certified staffing.
Yes.
Next year, and that's assuming COVID allows us to put more kids in a classroom, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't happen?
So I'll move to expenditures.
Okay.
Okay. So when we go to expenditures, anytime you make forecasts, you're making a lot of assumptions. It's not buried in cement. This isn't, die hard, it's actually going to come to fruition. These are only assumptions that we made. So many of the assumptions that we made for this forecast is that in 22-23, we should look more normal. We're not anticipating social distancing. We're anticipating that we need to get back to staffing our buildings based on the prototypical funding model and using those class sizes that we're typically funded on. That isn't the case this year. We have social distancing. We have other needs for supervision of students, so we have increased our staffing costs. But past pandemic, when we get back to our more normal year, and we were somewhat hopeful this year, but In 22-23, the assumptions that we're making is that we will be back, we will be post-pandemic, we will be able to get back to the class sizes and the staffing allocations that we typically do in a normal year. That would indicate that based on our student numbers, we wouldn't have the need for as many staff. So we have attrition. The hope is that as we go, we always have staff retiring, we have staff leaving and moving. The hope would be that as you go through that process, that we wouldn't have to do a reduction in force, that we could naturally let it happen. But those are conversations that we have to have. It can't all be staff. So we have to look at what are some other things where we can make reductions, and we're going to have some conversations over this next year about what do we want for the future. This is a critical year. 22-23 really sets the tone of how do we get ourselves back into swing so that our revenues and our expenditures are somewhat balanced and ongoing. So as you can see, I forecast expenditures for 22-23 at $142 million. For 23-24, $146 million. And for 24-25, $150 million. So let's look at what that looks like. So what we are attempting, again, we are trying to balance our revenues and our expenditures. We're trying to get them back in sync so that our ongoing revenues are supporting our ongoing expenses. That's going to mean that in 22-23, we're going to have to make some tough decisions. We're going to have to try and get back to more normal staffing and class sizes, and we are going to have to make some decisions on, do we continue doing certain things? If there's things that we want to do in the future and they cost, what are we going to let go? So those are the things that we're really going to have to look at over this next year so that we can make decisions before it becomes critical in the spring. By the spring, we should have a pretty good idea of where we're at and what we want to do and what it's going to look like. So I don't want to paint a doom and gloom. I think it's realistic. We need to build our fund balance up slightly, but we can't knee jerk and we can't make it, astronomical. Typically, the rule of thumb is that you want to have a fund balance that will carry you through at least 1.5 months of expenditures. And so that's really where we want to try and be. We want to be fiscally prudent. We want to use the dollars that we're getting this year for this year's students and staff, and we want to keep that going. And so, yes, there are one-time allocations and there are one-time dollars in expenditures, but those one-time expenditures happen, they can be used for one thing one year and one thing for the next. So we have to look at those cycles and be thoughtful about what we're putting aside, setting aside for those types of things. So, I don't know. Any questions? This is kind of a tough one.
Button to work here. You mentioned about 1.5 months.
Mm-hmm.
What's that number?
Right now, it's about $10 million.
For 1.5 months or one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I'm assuming I was thinking we'd save some money in building maintenance with all these new buildings, but then again, we've got a couple new
Mm-hmm.
buildings, so then we've got the additional cost of lights and stuff like that. Was there a big savings, do you anticipate?
I wouldn't say it's a savings. So we have a commitment. We have a levy line that is for major maintenance projects.
Right.
We still have schools that have not been touched, and so we need to be doing things. So, for instance, this year, we did new carpeting for Gig Harbor High, a lot of classrooms in Gig Harbor High, and also in Peninsula High School. We need to continue to do those things. We don't have many leaky roofs, but we did replace Voyager's roof this year. We can't not do those things.
Right.
And so we need to continue to do that. We need to honor that commitment that we put into the levy. And so we want to keep doing that. We are also committed to doing safety projects. So we're looking at security cameras, and we're looking at those security measures that we can make our buildings safer. So we are committing to do those things, and I don't see that as a takeaway. I think we just have to be careful that we're not trying to do too much each year. So we have to stay within our means.
Right.
And do our projects within those means.
So as far as that building, that line item in the budget, it didn't change any? It carried forward even with the new buildings?
We've been continuing it because it's part of the Levy Spending Plan.
Okay.
And that was part of the voter approval that we that was one of the reasons why we got the levy, I believe, is because of that commitment.
Okay.
Okay, other funds. Capital Projects Fund. Again, our revenues are coming in. Actually, I'll start with the ending balance. We believe that this year we're going to end this fund with an ending balance of a little over $54 million. Revenues for next year are about $37 million, expenditures $91 million, with an ending balance of $1.2 million. We've got 6 projects that were slated with the bond. So we have 4 elementary schools, and we have 2 modernizations of our middle schools. The bulk of the balance of the bond will be spent in 21-22. The balance of the bulk and the balance of the state match funds that we're receiving from these projects will be spent in 21-22. So as you go forward, you'll see that our revenues in 21-22, we are going to, the majority of our revenues are state match dollars coming in from our projects. Most of our projects will be completed by the end of the year. We'll have a little bit of a balance, and those will probably be the 2 remodels that we project will have some costs in 22-23. After that, we're only collecting impact fees for years 23-24 and 24-25. We have no plan at this time for expenditures. In the past, we've used impact fees to purchase portables, but we don't need portables at this point in time. So at this point, we're still collecting impact fees and not a lot of activity forecasted in the future once we're done with the building projects. Our debt service fund. So we have, we're estimating an ending fund balance this year of $4.4 million. Our revenues, our levy is a little over $12 million. Our debt service payments are a little over $12 million, coming out at $4.9 million. So our forecast for this fund is we have our debt service plans, so we know what our debt payments are. We have no more bonds to sell. We don't anticipate any changes to this at this point. So the revenues are pretty much what the tax collection will look like, and then that'll be enough to pay for the debt service payments. So we really don't see anything changing, and keep in mind the debt service payments are for 20 years. I think we're into year 4 for one and 3 for the other one. Our associated student body, again, activity this year was not as strong as it has been in the past. We anticipate ending at about $980,000. Budgets that came in from the student bodies, revenues are at 1.8, expenditures 1.9, ending $816,000. Forecasting, we pretty much believe that our students are pretty consistent with their budgets, with their hopes, with their dreams, and with their energy. And so we didn't make a lot of changes other than just knowing that as our students increase, hopefully their revenues will somewhat go up a little bit, but also their expenditures will too. And so we're trying to project that they're using their dollars, whatever they do, for the activities that they are hoping to do in the future years.
Karen, can I ask a quick question about that?
Sure.
Just because a few slides back we mentioned that we are eliminating the fees for pay to participate. So can you just explain a little bit the difference between a pay to participate and the ASB fees that students might incur, and how maybe continuing to track free and reduced lunch would help with that?
Yeah. So a couple things. The pay to participate, they do go into the general fund. That was a commitment to support transportation for athletics. That was the major piece. For ASBs, they have different fundraisers, so they look at like their ASB card as a fundraiser. They look at the yearbook as a fundraiser. They have fundraisers. We have Tide Fest. We have Winterfest. So the student body themselves, the leaders of each club, they kind of set what they're going to do, and they're either doing fundraisers or they have individual fees. One of the things that we have to do this next year is with this Senate bill, I think it's 1440, I have to remember, but we have a Senate bill that we have to look at equity. And we have to work with student bodies to find out what the equity gap is for each of their schools. And that is, we have to have the conversations with student leaders that, are you making sure that every student that wants a student body card can get a student body card? And so we're looking at opportunities. There are waivers that through the free and reduced application. There are boxes that parents can check to say that they, would like to take advantage of the waivers. We are looking at a process where no one sees that, but it's information that's behind the scenes, so that if a family goes in to purchase a student body card and they qualify for free and reduced, that they get the student body card, but no fee comes up, as being charged. So we are looking into that opportunity. But there are other students that they may not want to take advantage of that. They want to pay for their fair share. Or they might not qualify for free or reduced, but they're right on that cusp, and it's a tough decision, so families have to make decisions. So those are the conversations that we have to go in and work with the student bodies and the student leadership to talk about, how are you supporting your student body, and what are the decisions that you want to make about your fellow students, and reducing the barriers so that everyone can do what they want to do.
Right.
And if it means, we work harder at having fundraisers, then we do fundraisers so that everyone's included. So that's one thing that we have to do. I say we, my business department, so my finance director and myself, we need to get out into the buildings and work. We're supposed to have a plan. Each school is supposed to have a plan of how they're going to close that equity gap. We've kind of taken some of that off of them through the general fund by reducing the pay to participate and some of the class fees that we have in the general fund, but it also applies to student body. And so we have to go out, we have to have the conversations, we have to educate and work with those students so that they don't feel like they're being told what they have to do. They need to be a part of the plan. They need to be a part of the solution. And
They need to know
have
that
great
a solution
ideas.
is needed as well.
Oh,
They're not aware.
they're going to have great ideas, and they're going to be eager to make sure that they don't have any students that are going without. So
That's great. Thank you.
All right, last fund, Transportation Vehicle Fund. We anticipate ending the ending fund balance for this year at $845,000. Keep in mind that we get our state depreciation funding on August 31st, the last day of the fiscal year. That's when we get our depreciation funding. So what we do is we use that money to buy buses for the next year. One of the other things that we do is we put our purchase orders in for buses using the prior year's numbers before the new bid amounts come out. So we'll put our orders in at the end of May or the beginning of June because they bid all the bus quotes and everything at the end of June. And so we try to utilize that savings a little bit for next year's buses. So a little bit of our strategy. So this year we are planning on purchasing 3 large buses and 3 small buses. We also will have an additional bus that we are purchasing because we had a bus that was deemed, we're getting insurance for it. I can't even think of the name. Anyways, we're getting insurance for it, and so we will replace it. So it's a little bit more than we typically buy, but it's being funded through the insurance recovery amounts. So we anticipate ending $622,000 in this budget. One of the things that's going to happen this year, you'll see there's a difference in the revenues. The reason why is because we have 12 large buses that are coming off state depreciation. So we won't be getting funding for those buses anymore. We had a year where we received a federal grant. We were able to buy 4 large buses, but we had to match it, and we had to do a local match and buy 4 buses. So we got 8 buses. But at the same time, I think this was back in 2007, the 2007 engine didn't come out until 2008. And so we had 4 buses that were ordered back in 2007, and we didn't get them until 2008. Thus, we got 12 buses all in 1 year. And so that's why they're all coming off at the same time. So what does that look like? Because we're trying to keep our buses current, we've been buying additional buses to try to get ahead of that. But we believe that in the future, to augment some of that loss until we get more buses on depreciation, we will probably have to do a transfer from the general fund. So we will have to get some funding, most likely from the levy, to support purchasing additional buses. So we would like to continue to purchase 3 large buses and 3 small buses in the future, but we will need the help of about $200,000 coming from the general fund. So we will look at that. We will analyze it. We will also look at our bus inventory and see if that's really a need. Do we need to buy 3 buses, 3 large and 3 small, or do we make changes to that plan? So it's not set in stone, but we built that into our forecast. So tonight, as part of the budget adoption process, we need to conduct a public hearing. There is an adoption resolution 2129 that you will pass, hopefully, and that is you're basically approving the appropriation amounts for each fund that we're bringing to you. You're also approving the 4-year forecast summary and also the Levy Spending Plan for 21-22. And this is what the resolution will read. For each fund, the appropriation, the expenditure appropriation amount that we cannot exceed without doing a budget extension for next year. Any questions?
Excellent job as always. Thank you, Karen. Next up, we have old business. We have the second reading, revised policy 3520. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, thank you. Yep. So next up, thank you, Natalie. We have public comment. Must have skipped something. Community members wishing to make public comment on the proposed 21-22 budget are asked to indicate on the request to make comment card. Anyone submit a card for public comment? Does anyone have a comment on the proposed budget? Anyone have a comment on the proposed budget? Anyone have a comment on the proposed budget? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to old business. Second reading, revised policy 3520, student fines, fees, and charges. You've had a couple of weeks to review those. Are there any comments or questions on policy 3520? No? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve policy 3520, student fines, fees, and charges?
I'll move to approve, I can't see it, sorry, policy 3520.
Thank you. Is there a
I'll
second?
second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Natalie, seconded by Chuck to approve policy 3520, student fines, fees, and charges. Item 8.2, second reading revised policy 3231, student records. Same questions, any comments or discussion?
Don't we need to vote?
Excuse me?
We need to vote.
Man, let's hear the what? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you. Okay. Second reading revised policy 3231, student records. Any discussion? Okay. Okay, hearing none, can I get a motion to approve policy 3231?
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved by Lori. Is there a second?
That was Natalie, but I'll second.
Oh, thank you. It's been moved by Natalie, seconded by Lori. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All those opposed? Okay. Second reading revised policy 5200, drug-free workplace. Any discussion? All those, is there a motion to approve 5200?
I'll make a motion
It's been a
to
long
approve
week.
that one.
Okay, it's been moved by Chuck. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Chuck, seconded by Lori. All those in favor of approving policy 5200, drug-free workplace, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It's been moved, approved to approve policy 5200. Okay, now, new business. All of you received a copy of the first reading of the board operating protocol. Is there any discussion about the board protocol?
Are we reading it or just discussing?
Typically, I don't believe we read it, but I do.
It was given to you to read.
Yeah, you just get it but I do,
Just maybe say what it is.
oh, sure. It's a board operating, I thought I said it was board operating protocols. Several of the board members got together over the past couple weeks and worked on revising board protocols, and we just got an updated version of it. One of the things that I do have a comment on the section comments from the community, if you have a copy of yours with you. It just says, where is it?
It's at the bottom of page 1.
Yeah, there's two sections. Hold on one second. It's the timing of it had to do with, oh, here it is. It says comments from the community will be heard during regular board meetings, which occur at the second meeting of each month. But we don't always have a meeting. We only have one meeting, sometimes just at the beginning. So like over the holidays, we don't usually meet the second at the end of December, and we only have one meeting in November due to Veterans Day and Thanksgiving and so forth. So I think that we should just say comments from the community will be heard during regular board meetings, and leave out will occur at the second meeting of each month. Would you guys be okay with that? Okay. We'll send that to you for lining that out. Okay, so I'll just ask, do you have any comments, questions on the board policies?
No, but I would like to say, having these district board operating protocols identifies really the board's role and the superintendent's role. And I just want to thank Natalie and Deb for the hard work and the rest of the board for really sponsoring that. It makes things clean and clear, and it allows us to work as a really good team of 5+1 for the betterment of students. So this is, it's pretty amazing in my second month to have a board that is going forward with their operating protocols. So it's a job well done, even though it's a draft. And there is more work on the strategic plan, but this, I do have to say, this is a very eager board to get it right and to do it together. And so it is really an honor and a pleasure. So nice work.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll vote on that for the second reading at the next business meeting. Next is we have adoption of resolution number 2129, our budget for 21-22. Am I required to read the resolution, or can we just vote on it? I don't believe we need to read it, correct? Okay, so can I get a motion to approve resolution 2129, budget for 21-22?
So moved.
Who did it?
Lori.
It's been moved by Lori. Sorry, barely spoke.
And I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Chuck. All those in favor to approve adoption of resolution number 2129, budget of 21-22, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It's been moved to approve the budget. Karen, go forth. Okay, next up we have superintendent's report.
All right, thank you all. It is past 9 o'clock, so thank you for your patience. I want to thank our staff for their hard work. Getting ready for opening school in a regular year is a lot of work, and this year, with all of the changes right down until, well, hopefully there's not one next week, but right until the end, really is a yeoman's job. So I want to thank the staff for their hard work. One thing that I've learned here in Peninsula School District is that people will do whatever it takes in order to serve children. So that really is an honor, all the way from the board down to the classroom. This is a community that I have found has grace for children, has a lot of patience, a willingness to have really crucial conversations in respectful ways, and focus on children. We will be opening schools on September 7th. I had an opportunity to meet with the two comprehensive high school presidents this week and sit down with them, and it was a very interesting conversation, so I just want to share with you. They said that they were really, really excited, and they also wanted to express that there are many students over the last 18 months that have not been in school, many of them, and still have a lot of anxiety. And I'm looking back at Amy because she was able to sit in. It was very interesting because both of the presidents didn't know each other. So I made the assumption, because, it's a smaller town, I thought they knew each other, and they didn't know each other. And I thought, well, what an opportunity to bring them together. So they are going to help kick off our back to school event on Monday with the staff. And so I have a couple questions that I asked them. And they said, you know what, Mrs. Barr, we want to make sure that all of our students feel like they belong. That many of the students have some anxiety and some depression because Zoom is not the same. They said, you know what, Mrs. Barr, they've only been at school in person with about half of the people for 2 days a week for 18 months. And so we kind of had that conversation about how important it is to open our doors, to be welcoming, to make sure that especially our youngest learners. We were talking about that. We said our youngest learners really learning social skills and how to be kind and how to be a friend, how to not be a bully, right? How to be inclusive. All of those things that we will do during a pandemic with open schools. I also want you to know that I need to clarify the 10% that I said earlier. Thank you, John. Our students are in the 10th percentile of high school or secondary nationally for belonging. So I don't know the number. I'm looking at John right now, approximately 40%. Okay, so it's a little bit higher, but it's still something to work on, and it's an opportunity. Our parents are welcome back into our schools. Our parents are partners, and we're going to figure this out together. And so there are back to school events, and the principals have worked really, really hard to make it safe and aligned to the COVID CDC guidelines. We will have return to learn testing available for our staff. That was here last year, and that will be updated online as soon as we get more information. Our athletics are going. So what has happened over the last couple weeks? We have had Jumpstart preschool kids and kindergarten going around, and seeing those little guys and little gals sitting in their classrooms was a joy. Our athletics has started. Kids know what to do when they're together, and our coaches do an amazing job. Our high school students were invited back over the last week, and the new buildings are welcoming teachers right now and will be welcoming our staff. So I hope that you feel as excited as I do. The excitement is building, and September 7th will be here. So with all of the conversations and the complexity, and it is difficult times, but we as adults know that the children are watching us. They expect us to be our best self every day, and that we figure this out. And it's very, very important this year more than ever. So thank you for your support, your grace, your patience, and helping us focus on kids. So we'll see you September 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have board discussion and comments. Who would like to go first? Chuck, you want to go first? Start on your end this time?
Sure. I got to mimic the thank you to everybody out there. We were in Evergreen Elementary day before yesterday.
It was yesterday.
That was yesterday. And there's a lot of work to do, but I can see them scrambling. There's boxes piled everywhere, and I'm sure that is the same for most of the new schools. But we'll get it done. And our staff, our teachers, they'll get it done, I have no doubt. So I'm very appreciative of all the efforts that are being done out there. And I have a lot of friends who are bus drivers, who are clerical staff, who are helping to support this organization in so many ways, and they have my utmost respect and support, as do the teachers and the groundskeepers and all of them. And so I will continue to respect them in every way I can, and I'm sure the district will continue to support them in every way. I don't know what next week's going to bring. It seems like every week something new comes down through the pipe, and it worries me more than the virus. I'm worried more about the next mandate. I wish we had control and could look at the science and do it locally. But we don't. And everything that's being handed down to us in those ways is being mandated, and I wish there was a two-way conversation happening. That's all I got to say.
Can I go next? I used to go last, so thanks. So since our last business meeting, we all were excited. We got to go to the Peninsula Middle School groundbreaking, which was awesome, which we're going to be doing thanks to our voters and Karen and our responsible fiduciary of our funds and impact fees and you name it. We're able to do 2 major modernizations based off of the community support on Pass Center Bond in 2019. So thank you to everyone for that. Also got to do groundbreaking at Kovachuck Middle School, so very exciting about that. I got to attend the Communities in Schools Purses with a Purpose fundraiser a couple weeks ago, which their events are always fun. And this was the first one that didn't have because it was a fundraiser during the day, it didn't have a theme. But I always, like Natalie, I went as Mr. Howell and my wife was Mrs. Howell, and I always enjoyed dressing up with the various themes and for their events. Since the last business meeting, we also met for our second strategic planning meeting, and we're working on scheduling our 3rd strategic planning meeting. And we haven't had one for a new one since 2013-14, and I helped work on that one 8 years ago. So we're excited to get our strategic plan updated. We're going to make sure that we involve all the stakeholders. This time, 8 years ago, it was sort of pushed through by that particular board. But we want to make sure that all stakeholders are involved in our strategic plan going forward. For anyone that's, I don't know what's the process. I can't make it, but Monday, August 30th, I know some of the board members are going to be there. August 30th is Evergreen is going to be part of it, at least. It's going to be demoed and torn down to make room for the bus route. I don't know, is community invited that, or is that just a special, like only a couple people can attend the demo of Evergreen, if anyone know?
And it'll just be the beginning of it.
Amy, maybe?
I do believe that the community can come, but they can't be right there. They have to be far away. That would be terrifying.
Right.
But I do know, I have done a walkthrough with Patrick, and there's really nothing there. I did follow up. There's really nothing there to salvage.
Mm-hmm.
And so it could be an event. So I'm looking at Amy, we could put something out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's
I
not
think
bad.
that would be a
That's a good
great
idea.
idea. And I think that had been discussed. So we'll get something out.
Yeah, maybe we get a drone to hover over it and watch it.
Sound effects.
Do a drone, but who knows? I know that I guess Chuck might be aware, we did the firefighters out on the Peninsula. I got to do some training at Evergreen this week, so that was a really nice opportunity to give back to our firefighters out there to do some much needed training in buildings. And lastly, for me, I just want to thank the community again for being respectful to each other, to the board. Thank you very, very much for wearing your mask tonight. There was some concern that some people may not do that, and it would have possibly forced the board to adjourn and reconvene via Zoom. So I thank the community for being respectful. Even if you may not approve of the mask mandate, thank you for respecting the fact that we're required to follow it. And then just thank you for the community with your passionate comments and being respectful in how you converse with the board and with each other. So thank you. So that's it.
Thanks. I would just like to say that I went to the demo of the Kingdom years ago, and I later wished I had watched it on a live stream instead. It was very exciting and very dusty. Just real quick, I wanted to say again, just a huge thank you to Karen and Caroline. This was mentioned earlier, but not everyone may be aware that almost every hot topic that was discussed tonight is ultimately something that they are in charge of, whether it's negotiations or the budget or mandate implementation, or it's all comes back to the two of you. So we appreciate all of your amazing work. And I think my only other comment, because it's late, was just, again, this might have been my same comment the last public meeting, but I loved hearing the just impassioned comments from everyone tonight. And while not everyone, many people have very different opinions, the thing that everyone shares that is obvious is a love and a passion for kids and what's the best and the safest and what gives every single child the very best educational and just childhood, just opportunity, all of those things. That's some of what we touched on, a lot of what we touched on in our retreat that David mentioned. One of the centerpieces for our strategic plan is we just talked for quite some time about just belonging and kids feeling like they matter and like someone would notice if they weren't there, and just feeling a part of their community. And how do we create that? How do we make that for every single kid? And so those things are really important to all of us. And so my comment really is just, as you saw tonight, which I think this is a good piece of public comment, is that it becomes obvious that there are persons with radically opposite opinions on the same topic sometimes, but still very passionate and very caring about children and really wanting what's best. And it just made me think that I often get asked, sometimes in a curious, friendly way, sometimes in a less, in a different way. But I often get asked how come I did something, or how come I decided something, or went a certain course when it comes to a board decision. And my answer is always the same. It's because that is what I determined to be the best thing for kids. And if it couldn't be the best thing for every single kid with one decision, what was going to be the best thing for the most kids? You know, what did I determine? And that's always what guides. I can only speak for myself, but I know it's true for the rest of these guys. And so, you know, we're in this together, and I just wanted to publicly mention that that is what drives the decisions. And we do learn. Someone talked about, I had to rewatch to see who said what. Someone was talking about humble leadership, and I think that's really important. I love to look back and think, I didn't know that, or I didn't think that, or I didn't think someone would think that about what I did or said, and that's important to do, and you learn from that and you go forward, and so here we are, but we are committed to every single kid in this district, and we will see them all on September 7th. So.
Okay, I'll keep it short. I know it's really late, so thank you all for coming, especially thank you all for sticking through all of it. On some fun things, I've enjoyed visiting all the places that have been mentioned. I also had the opportunity to go with the superintendent to check out our new ROTC group, and it was just amazing to see them already operating as a team, pretty much exactly like what we expected to happen when these kids came together. I am not sure if Creston had ever had a room called to attention when she entered before, so I'm not sure if there's any military members in here, but when she walked in the room,
I wasn't sure if I was supposed to salute or stand up straight. I still don't know the protocol, so I need a tutorial.
You know what? I think what's important is that they do. So we'll keep working with Commander Hood on that, but it was really, really heartwarming to see. Also, just driving around the parking lot with my own kids at Gig Harbor High School, to have to wait because there's too many people walking around in front of me to be able to go anywhere, it was a joy to see. And it just the wisdom of a 15-year-old boy. So as you know, things come at all of us all the time. And yesterday he could see my frustration, and just it's sometimes disheartening to not be able to do things the way people want us to, or to be able to respond, or to not have that control. And he said, first he rolled his eyes, and then he said, "Mom, I'm sorry, but you're in the seat. It's your job." And it was kind of refreshing for me. But it also made me realize it's not just me, it's not just us, it's all of us. We are all here at the same time. We all have a dog in this fight. And to echo what my fellow board members have said is, I'm not nervous when I come to these meetings, because I know who is going to be here are people who love our kids and want the best for our community. So thank you for that. And then to end on just a funny note, what I feel like right now is, if you remember the movie Hot Shots, if any of you have seen this, at the very end when they're trying to land that plane on the aircraft carrier and they're calling it out, and he's like, I'm missing a wing. You're doing fine. Okay, I've got bird strike, doing fine. My engine fell off. You're still gonna make it. So you know what? September 7th is that aircraft carrier for me. And all of this that comes at us, we will together take it on. And can I give a shout out to Mr. Aston? Do you mind if I call you out here? As We are here with a Peninsula School District institution. So this is a teacher that you will see every day, rain or shine, and I'm going to add, in shorts, rain, shine, snow. Greeting kids, knowing their names, knowing that I had a grumpy fifth grader who insisted on buttoning his top shirt button every day. Dress shoes. That he's not that way anymore, but that's what it's about. And I thank you for being here and for being a part of our school district and being a valued member of this community. So thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. With that, we'll adjourn at 9:35.